I call this meeting of the Northfield Finance Committee to order. It's March 8th, and we're doing it via Zoom. And I'll give you this governor's reason. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of persons that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Northfield Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. A record of the proceedings will be posted on the Town of Northfield website as soon as possible after the meeting. So it's almost a year now. Interesting. The first item of business we'll take up is the minutes of last week's meeting, the March 1st meeting that have been sent out to you. Anybody want to make a motion in regard to the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes for March 1.
Dan Campbell
Second that motion.
Jack made the motion and Dan seconded it that we accept the minutes of March 1st as presented. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. And I'll skip over the available amounts at this point, and we'll get to them. I think I'd like to go through the budget items that we still have pending. We did a lot last week and tentatively approved them contingent on having the money. But there are a couple of things that we still need to talk about. One was that we received the ZBA budget at that time. And Andrea, you said you wanted to check with them to make sure there was no funds, there were no funds for internet this year.
I haven't heard back, but I'm telling them we're not paying for the internet, so.
Will that reduce this amount?
I don't know, I'd have to look into how much they paid last year for it. It was a couple $100, I think, but I don't know the exact amount.
Okay, you'll check for that then.
Yeah.
Another one was the fact that we had the chairman of the Conservation Commission in last week and telling us why he wanted some money restored to their budget, and that was for clerical help, and he gave us the reasons and what was going on. So we need to discuss that and decide whether we want to recommend that or not. Anybody have any thoughts on it?
Well, didn't we leave it as kind of a personnel matter the select board has to deal with? I don't think we had an argument about how much, but it's how it would be funded, either through the part-timer that Andrea has set up or directly through the Conservation Commission.
I think what we did is we tabled that and discussed that with the select board, once met with the select board and go over what the opinion they might have on it. We didn't really come up with any alternative as far as doing that, but we wanted to discuss it with them. And
I don't recall about discussing it with them. I think what our recommendation is going to be. I don't know whether, Andrea, you want to make any comment or not. I know you gave
I
us...
can certainly bring it to them. I mean, I think tonight wouldn't be a bad time to kind of maybe try to brainstorm on a meeting with the select board, a date that we could throw out at their meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of things that you guys might want to discuss with them. So maybe it might be time to set up having that meeting.
Well, I won't know till we get through tonight here, how much of this we accomplish before we are ready to talk to them. But the point is, we have to make a recommendation on the Conservation Commission budget. That's our responsibility by the law. And so are we going to recommend it, that be included or not? You can recommend it as it was without that funding in there. And Jack, that's the account that you spoke of, that part-time help Andrea's got under there for the select board. I think it says what, select board part-time, something like that. And it doesn't mean a part-time select board member.
Here's my thought on that. Basically, if we put the money in there, it's going to sit there virtually forever because they haven't had anybody fill that role for the last at least 6 or 7 years. As long as I have been a town clerk, I don't think they've had anybody. Well, they did way back in the beginning. They did have somebody that did do some of the work there, but at least for the last 5 years, they have not had anybody filling that role. And they don't have it because it's very few hours. As far as no one would want to do that, but you do need somebody that's specialized in being able to fill out the forms that they have. If you say yes to it, it's just going to sit there. They may find somebody, and if they do, then they'll have the funds to be able to do that.
That's true. They haven't had anybody that they were satisfied with to do the work. You're right. And they're looking for somebody to do the specialized forms after they have a meeting and have a case to consider. That's true.
What's the amount based on? How many hours?
I don't know how many hours this was. Andrea has put together
That request is their request from 2 years ago. I don't know how many hours they've ever used. So it's hard for me to say. You can say that that's I mean, I can do the math backwards based on what the grade and step of that position would be. It's probably a 5-1, which on the charts, I can tell you what the pay grade is for that, and then you can divide it out. And let's see, a 5-1 right now, if they were hired, would be $17.64 an hour. So we can do it backwards.
They put in 22,812.
Is that what they're saying? 22,812? Let me put it in.
812.
22,812.
2,812.
$2,812 divided by, what did I call that? 17. 5-1 is 1764. 159.4 hours, 160 hours, give or take.
So divide that by 12, so much a month is about
13 hours a month.
Yeah.
That's way more than they need. I mean, if you want to do a compromise, I would split the cost and cut it right in half, because I don't think they'd do 13 hours, even with meetings. How many meetings do they have a year? I mean,
Depends on.
Generally one a month.
Yeah, except if there's some special case that they have to take up. But now, Andrea, you have this person doing filing, and there's work to be done in that room there still, isn't there, as far as?
I know we're still working on the maps. We have various projects. I mean, and I will move her on to another project. We're going to continue to go through that room and sort and get that room in shape, cleaned out with stuff, that's duplicative. I mean, I think that we'd like to turn that back into ultimately a meeting room, and certainly a room where boards and committees can access their material and use the table in there to look at their materials during meetings.
And that's this person. We're talking about one person that works for the various boards.
Yes.
And
10 hours, give or take a week. And last week she didn't work.
Total for all.
Right, she's worked less than 10 some and more than 10 others, depending, but no more than then the set 10 hours a week is our max over the year.
I think he mentioned that there was somebody that they used to have that could do the work that's temporarily laid off from
So that was what's her
something
name?
else.
Yeah, she wanted to be a stewardess. I can't remember her name.
No, and she might be willing to come back for a while, but I don't know.
But if
I
you're
don't-
talking 13 hours a month as far as doing that, and they're meeting once a month, I mean, that's way over the number of hours that this person would probably need.
Yes,
I spent some time today on the phone with Robin, who's on the committee now.
yes,
And I don't think this is just about filling out the forms. Bill doesn't really use the computer. Bill doesn't really type. So I think that what they want to do is they literally want to hire somebody to do all their mail, all their postings. I was trying to help her today to work on getting an ad into the newspaper because she didn't know the wording. They're supposed to be having a hearing for that solar array. She didn't know how many weeks or days that had to be in the paper prior to the hearing. So Sandra and I are working with her on that. So I envision that he's looking for a full secretary. He's looking for someone who will do all the paperwork, all the mail, all the postings, all their agendas, not just filling out their forms. It's because Robin's trying to learn how to do it and she's on the committee.
yeah.
Because he said to her, we got to post a meeting. We got to post right now because the 17th is going to be a public hearing. And it's got to be in the newspaper for 10 days. Well, she called me today and I said, well, you're done because it's 9 days from now. So that's not happening. So
Right.
we worked through, having this discussion. And Bill now wants her to get the mail and, he wants her to put the newspaper, he wants her. So she's sort of morphing into that role, but she's on the committee. So,
Yeah,
whether she's going to be the secretary or not, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's more than just filling out the forms.
I
He
see.
wants somebody to do basically all the ministerial, secretarial work for the committee, from posting to everything.
I'm thinking about it too. I mean, of course, I know the whole point here is to have secretarial work provided by somebody other than a member of the committee. That was to free them up. But
But getting your mail should be yours job. I mean,
yeah,
opening
Yes.
your mail, creating your own agendas. I'm like, how is this person going to create your agenda? How do they know what you want on the agenda? They're still going to have to communicate with you. So there's this real dichotomy between what he wants and I don't know who was doing it for the last few years, but apparently nobody, but
do you
that's
get
the sense
minutes?
I'm getting.
Dan, do they turn in minutes?
Nope.
Yeah,
Really?
no, not very many as far as doing that. I'd have to be far pressed to see how many.
Okay,
Nope.
all right.
So, yeah, I can see that if they can get somebody to do it, then yes, they'll be up to date with their minutes, but.
I mean,
Another
they
thing-
post their meetings. They've managed to do that. And I know they're posting their meetings. I don't know about public hearings.
Yeah,
Sandra said she hasn't put anything in the newspaper for them for a while, so they just may have not had to have one. I don't know.
right.
So
Another
if you've
thing-
ever seen the postings that before Robin took over, they're all handwritten. And you have to be pretty good to be able to read Bill's handwriting, so.
Yeah, Bill
I
doesn't
mean,
use a computer at all. So
No.
Robin's kind of switching into that mode.
And I believe Robin has sent us some minutes as far as doing it. So they are starting to do that when they have somebody that has some literacy as far as doing that, so.
Yeah. Another thing I'm thinking of, Andrea, is you've got one person working for several boards that use that room. Are we trying to say another person will now come in and have that? You can't have two of them working on the same filing system and that sort of thing.
I don't think you'd need the other person working on the filing system. I assume they would. I'm not exactly sure their current files because we haven't seen their files for the last few years. They haven't been turned over to us after repeated requests. We're up to about 2015 with them. We'd like to see the next 5 years worth of files. But
They're
things
not
have-
kept in the town hall, you mean?
not to my knowledge.
I don't know, Dan, you suggested maybe approving half of this amount.
Well, again, now, listening to what Andrea said, is, I mean, it would be, if they could get somebody that's gonna do all of that for them, then there would be more hours involved. I could see that, but it was just somebody to take minutes for their meetings. What does their meeting last? Couple of hours, say, as far as doing that? So that's 2 hours a month. So what's happened to the other 11 hours as far as doing that? So,
Yeah,
but if this person is going to start, I can see 8 hours a month as far as doing that, or even 10 hours a month as far, but
now
I
you
think
get
it
back
boils
to
down to, do we support this at $800? Or do we not support it, or do we change the amount?
yeah. The thing, the job description, Andrea, you have the job descriptions. And would you see that one having a different, I shouldn't say separate, different job description than the others have?
I
Any
don't know
other
that I
person?
have a Concom secretary job description. I'm not in my office at the moment, but I can
No.
certainly pull. I don't know that I have a separate one for the Concom. If I did, we'd have to revise it, because it would be different than certainly the board's clerk job description that we're using. For certain.
And that would be something that would control what they can have her do, her or him, whoever, by the job description, correct?
You would definitely want it in there, because in my opinion, you're gonna have to end up advertising this job. I don't see how, ultimately, if we don't have a person that's gonna stay for very long, you're gonna have to put out there again for this job. So we're gonna have to have a job description.
Yeah,
I don't recall ever coming across a Conservation Commission board's clerk job description in and of itself. But I could be wrong, but I can look back in there, but I don't recall ever having seen that. Actually, I'm on my computer, so I can actually go above and beyond, and I can actually tell you that.
okay,
Because everything I have is in my computer. Oops, I just
Yeah.
opened the internet instead of opening.
okay.
my
Tony,
computer.
did you have some thoughts on it?
I lean towards not funding that. We can have a discussion with the select board. And if they feel that it's necessary, I would be comfortable funding it without that amount. And we can always add it in if this, and we talk with the select board and they say, well, no, I think we really ought to have this. We can put it in afterwards. And it's certain, but it wouldn't be the amount, I think, 13 hours a month or whatever. Even if they did all the paperwork for the Conservation Commission, I don't think it's going to come out to more than, and met their meetings, 6 to 8 hours a month at max. So I think it's definitely too much money right now.
Yeah.
For that position. And, as far as just taking minutes, I don't see that the clerk that we have now, for the several committees, I don't see that being a problem for her to take that on, just the minutes.
Yes,
Okay,
He doesn't.
I found something in my old job description files from
okay,
2013. There's an administrative assistant to the Conservation Commission.
and how does the grade
Looking.
compare
It's
to?
a 5, it's the same, it's a 5.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at what the duties are. Essential functions, regularly checks mail and phone messages, which they wouldn't really. Communicates time-sensitive matters to the chair. Prepares agenda, notifies the board of meetings, attends meetings, takes minutes, prepares legal documents for recording, prepares legal notices for posting, types correspondence, files all records. That's the job description.
yeah, that sounds like the type of thing he's talking about, doesn't it?
Yes.
Right, from 2013, but I don't know that anybody's ever filled that job description.
Yeah, Yeah. The thing is, Sue, you have any comment on it?
No, but I have a tendency to agree. If he hasn't been using it, hasn't needed it, and we have someone in place, I can't see putting the money into it.
Okay, Bernie?
I agree with Sue. I don't see putting any more money into it, especially if it hasn't been used. And the other concern I have is like anything else, when somebody takes the responsibility of being the chair of a commission or board, they need to take up some of the responsibilities that come with that position. I feel that saying that he needs a secretary to take care of basically some of the responsibilities that I think he should be able to take care of himself. I think that's, you're getting into the point of having somebody hold your hand. And I think that's excessive. I think he, unfortunately, has to come up with the times and take care of some of the responsibilities that come with the position.
Jack, you have anything further to add?
No, but what Bernie and Sue have said sounds reasonable to me.
One reason I'm moving it along, trying to get it moved along rather than say we'll wait till we meet, is that we need to finish up this budget. We need to get our figures together and things have to be finalized so that, we can't just add in some more money later on or something. We need to come along with it. So does anyone want to make a motion about what we should do?
I make a motion that that amount of money not be approved for that budget. I just don't see right now a need, and I think that there needs to be some improvement from the commission itself, the chair, to. I'm sorry, I'm digressing. I'm not in favor of adding that money to the budget.
So your motion is to not add in the $2,812.
That is correct. That is my motion.
For clerical wages.
That is my motion, yes.
I would second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to not include. Now, we're not saying that there wouldn't be clerical help. It's available through the person that has been hired to work for the different boards. Am I right, Andrea? That would still stand.
There's no reason she can't take their minutes. I mean, I think Robin is interested in getting involved in doing like their agendas and that kind of thing, which makes a lot of sense coming from a board member, and even getting the mail. She didn't seem adverse to that. But in terms of filing, that definitely should go to our board clerk. I don't think they should have a person filing into that system unless she learns how to file into the system, or starting a whole new separate filing system for the Concom. That would be, a little bit distractive, because we would now have a whole new filing system. We just combined 5 separate filing systems that people had started, and we're trying to get away from that. She certainly can attend by Zoom and take minutes. I mean, we've offered that, and Robin is setting up Zoom meetings for these meetings now. So there's really no reason that they shouldn't be able to have her take those minutes or record them. I'm recording your meeting. And send them to her, or record them on the voice recorder. They have that as well. So they do have some options.
Yes. So it's not that we're just denying them the whole system and everything method. Okay, is there any further discussion? And all in favor of the motion to not fund this 2812?
Dan Campbell says yes.
Bernie Parada says yes.
Tony Mateo, yes.
Sue Kaczynski, yes.
Jack, yes.
And Lois is yes. All right, thank you. So Andrea, you will take care of changing.
I'm going down the omnibus in the spreadsheet I sent you. And
Yes.
I had done everything over as if you agreed with everything. And then I am just making changes to everything you don't agree with.
Yes.
So I have gone to the line 171 Conservation Commission expense and changed that to the 975 from their request.
Okay,
So, I mean, in terms of other things, if you want to change them, just
Yeah.
let me know. I'll change the finance
That's what
committee
we'll-
recommended column.
that's
what
what
I'm
we'll
doing.
go through now on that. I want to make sure that we have clear, like last week when we said, okay, it's tentatively approved based on funding, I think we may have overlooked a couple of things. And one would be the Council on Aging budget request. It had things in there for supplies and so forth. But one of the items, and we told them at the time that it wouldn't be appropriate, but did we take out the money, was that they want floor covering down there. They want new tiles or whatever down there in the basement floor. And you remember we discussed the fact that we need to have the drainage problem settled and fixed in the parking lot behind before we do anything about the floor. The floor certainly needs work, there's no question, but it was just the timing of it. So I want to be sure that we have deducted that, whatever the amount, and you can't tell exactly what the amount was because it's would be put in with
Was that gonna be a capital expense?
it was not, they had it in as supplies under supply. Remember, they want furniture and so forth.
Mhm.
So
They certainly can't do their whole floor for that amount of
No,
money,
I'm looking
so.
at what they have and there's like pennies in here, office of other supplies, you have, what, $150?
No, they added
Oh,
1,500,
1,500.
but they wanted furniture, flooring.
yeah,
I don't know how much they're getting for flooring.
you're right.
I don't think they had an
1,500
estimate for
probably.
flooring at all to give to us, if I can recall.
Mhm.
And I don't think they had an estimate truly on also the cost of the furniture replacement. I don't recall that, but there was no specifics, but unless somebody knows something I don't know, but that's what I remember.
Seems to me 1,500 would barely cover furniture.
Oh,
If
yeah.
they want to replace some of it. And the flooring definitely should be part of that whole level flooring.
That would.
Lois,
should
I
be under
agree with
town
you as
hall.
far as that.
Yeah, I think you're right that they probably didn't have enough in there to cover it anyway, so that I'm not advocating taking something out. Here's the narrative that they sent with us, with their budget request. Attached is a budget request from the Council on Aging. They would like the Finance Committee to know that we plan on a reopening revision of the space we currently use. We have allocated extra money in the other supplies and the other purchases line items to reflect the anticipated purchase of furniture and upgrade of the flooring. Due to COVID and so forth, we need to exchange the cloth covered chairs, difficult to sanitize. We would like to add some other furniture items. And we didn't object to that. That was fine. Create a more relaxed, more home-like atmosphere and environment, and upgrade the deteriorating linoleum flooring. And they want the shed as another item and so forth. So I agree with you. I don't think there's enough money in here I'm not saying we need to reduce it, but I just don't want them to think they're gonna go ahead and do the flooring with whatever. Did everybody agree to that? I think we did, and I think they understood us when we said that about waiting for the parking lot to be fixed. Anybody have any
I
other
have in my
comments?
notes, Lois, that there was discussion for money to fix the floor and the FineCom advised that they can't until drainage project and parking lot is done. So it was mentioned to them.
Okay, so I'm not talking about, I don't think they had a lot of money in there for that. Does anybody have any problem with leaving their request for the money the way it was?
I just sent an email off to Becky asking her, just because you guys were curious, I said, I'm not saying the Finance Committee is not supportive, you were just curious if they had estimates and had some sense of what was, I don't know when I'll hear back from her, but I did send her an email, just
Okay, all
just
right.
for informational purposes.
Sure.
so that you guys would have some sense.
Okay, that sounds good then. All right. Yeah. Okay, a couple of others. The library had made a reduction in the amount of requests, and I don't think that that reduction has been made. The memo that she put in with it said adjusted library budget, salaries, 134,252.
$610. I'm just going by her to her master budget. It's 134,6. Did you say it was 134,610?
134,252
252.
is the new figure, and operating 41,941.
Yeah, that's the total I get. Let me see if it transferred over to the omnibus. It should. They should be linked. 41,941. Is that what it came to? Yeah.
And if you got the salaries that were somewhere I had it.
134,252. Okay. It's changed in the omnibus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if I change the line item, it's linked to your omnibus.
Okay, all right. And the other one, I see B is here. It was on the Historical Commission. We talked about we talked about that we would fund 2 copies of the Temple and Sheldon type that she wanted, because Dan said he would do one in his budget. But I don't think we reduced the amount that was requested
Yeah,
accordingly.
you did.
We did.
Yep.
So what
It's in
if
there.
you,
560 from 700 or 800.
I've got that marked down. Is that, was that commensurate with the amount, with the number of books? Because I've got
Yeah,
the
it was
560
30. It
written.
was $30 a book or something.
Yes.
Okay,
So it went down to 560 from 800.
Yep.
okay, yeah. And,
I don't know why. it
but it's
didn't
got
change.
800 in the.
Yeah, I don't
warrant.
know why. It's because it's correctly in the thing, so it must not be. Let me check the link. Historic Commission. It depends on what you're looking at. If you, it's correct on the master spreadsheets. But
Yeah,
it
but in
didn't, the
the-
link didn't click. Equals.
In here,
and
in the omnibus of the warrant, it's still 800.
not anymore. Line item by item has been changed. And it is corrected.
I see that.
So now it's 560 for the commission and 500 for the markers.
That's
Yeah,
Got it. Yeah, it was in the line item by account. It just didn't connect over. Some of the links didn't make it. So now it's in the omnibus.
okay, so that's fixed then. All right, that's good.
Yep.
Thank you. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to bring up that they saw in the omnibus?
Using your spreadsheet now. Don't use the draft warrant. That was not changed.
No, what I've got is the warrant you sent today.
Yes, the warrant I sent today would be the one to use.
Yes, that's what I've
I
got.
did put that one in. Yeah. I put it in this morning. It just takes creating that spreadsheet separately and putting it in. And at 7 o'clock on Friday, I was done.
Yeah, okay,
So I did that this morning.
okay.
I also added the PVRS capital after you received that because I got a new email this afternoon. They did not change the assessment that they're discussing at their subcommittee meeting, but they did put in a capital assessment, which I think is 4589.
I'm sorry, who was it? What department?
The high school, PVRS capital.
Oh, yes, okay.
They have a 0 there because today I just got their capital assessment, which is $4,589.
4,589 is Northfield
Correct.
share.
Yes.
Northfield's.
Capital assessment to the high school, yes.
Okay, now tomorrow night at 6 o'clock is another budget subcommittee meeting, the one they have to do over.
And that
again.
was the documents they sent out today. So I made those changes. They didn't change the assessment yet. I mean, that's still listed in those documents. It's the same
Yeah.
number that's in your.
Yeah.
um,
I'm looking for a posting for another school committee meeting because this would be budget subcommittee. Have to make a recommendation to the full school committee to vote so we won't have the assessment for the operating budget until after that meeting, whenever they have it. So, okay. Let's see. You had a town hall capital plan. Like this, that you gave us some time ago.
Yep.
All the but I didn't see anything in your articles, have you changed your mind on some of these things?
The only one we had, well, for this year, no, I didn't put the selectmen's furniture back in, but I do have the 5,000 for the carpeting. You do have a capital request for that.
Okay, okay, that's what that carpeting is?
It's gonna be carpets because we're gonna have the floors redone.
Yes.
All
Okay.
those linoleum floors need to be stripped and finished. It's been many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
All the
Yes.
way up and yes, and then up in the hallways where there's wood floors, we're gonna get a quote on that. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that this year or next year, but I want to get carpeting for that because a lot of these are hodgepodge old carpets that have been dragged around the town hall.
Yeah.
And so they last a long, long time, but we do need to protect these floors if we're gonna put them in, just
So
so.
that is this item here, then the 5,000?
Correct. That would be for all over the building to put down some
Wait a
new
minute.
mats in various places for entryways and hallways. And
Okay,
we're doing some work. We've cleaned out the auditorium. We've gotten rid of all that excess furniture. We're working on getting feet on all the chairs. We're getting a new rolling thing to put all those folding
Folding
chairs
chairs.
on something because only some of them fit. So I'd like to get everything up off the floor. I'm just trying to clean out all the junk and get the things ready, and then we can get the floors done. Just make things functional and look nice. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a beautiful
yeah.
building, so we should take care of it. And
Okay.
rather than make it crowded with all this stuff, let's make some real meeting spaces that are functional and the chairs don't fall on the floor when we stack them against the wall and just those kinds of things. Also, we
Good.
don't have a small thing that moves chairs. So the one that's in the auditorium is 10 feet long. So you can't take anything. So we want a smaller one that we could like put in the elevator. So if you wanted to take a bunch of chairs downstairs to the senior center or upstairs to one of the meeting rooms, you don't have to carry them 2 or 4 at a time, either in the elevator or up the stairs. We really don't have a thing that moves
Yeah,
around the town hall. So we've been leaving folding chairs in every single room at town hall rather than carry them around, which becomes problematic as well. There's folding chairs in every single room and we're just trying to
okay.
find a
So
home for things.
we have apparently.
But that we're doing
article
with current
is
funding.
there.
We
Yeah.
can
And
afford
Andrea, I
that
found a
card.
perfect place to put that cart downstairs in the senior center where that little cubby where the coats go. Nobody puts coats there anymore. We get the.
Well, I
furniture
think we-
in there, put it
I
right
think
in.
we may even be able to fit it in the auditorium between the big long cart and the voting booths right now. It'll fit right in there, or push the long one over and put it on the end. We'll find a spot. It's 4 feet. It's gonna be
Yeah,
a
that
double
was-
stack.
I'll show you where that is tomorrow. It's gonna be perfect.
Yeah, I know
going
where
in.
it is. So,
Because if
yeah,
you
so we
want-
want to
yeah.
be able to be able to move chairs around rather than carry them around. Otherwise, we're stacking them in every room.
All
And, you
right,
know, just little things like that. But the floors are an issue. We want to do the floors over and make everything nice, but we really, before we invest a couple $1,000s in stripping and waxing the floors, we need to be prepared to protect them once that
okay,
work is done.
okay. You said you've eliminated the office furniture?
I'm gonna wait. I think we can wait another year. I don't think the jail is open to actually making things right now. I think that their shops are closed. So I'd rather have the mats at this point, and then you can look into whether or not you want to do that. Let's get the 5 members on board. We're gonna get that room functional. You haven't been back in that room. We're adding a microphone, a television that will be on the side by swivel, so you can watch meetings from Zoom. So we're trying to make the, you know, space that we have work first. So before we add any big furniture, I think that we should just go ahead and work with what we have that in that space. And then we'll see what we need once the 5 members are there, what would be comfortable and functional to make that room.
Yeah, okay. There's still the 2 enterprise funds that we haven't made decisions on as far as recommending the budgets that they have asked for. But there's some, before we get to that, today, the chief of police called me and talked, and Andrea, he's talked to you, he said about this law that there will be no part-time, no academy for part-time officers. If this, has the law actually passed?
Yes,
Okay, the state law. So we've talked about in the past about somebody attended the part-time academy and the full-time academy. That means that's the position that they're going to fill afterward. And as I understand it, the state is passing a law that there will be no more part-time academies. So anybody that's going to be, we can still have part-time officers, but they will have to have attended the full-time academy, as I understand it.
the
And-
current part-time officers will be grandfathered, although there will be a transition academy or classes of some kind, and there's some discussion about
Did he
how
call
many
it
hours.
Bridge
Right,
Academy?
and they have to move in the next 3 years over to full-timers, or at least to full-time certification. And then after July 1st, there will be no more ability to hire part-timers. There will be no such thing as part-time officers. They're going to all be full-timers, and they all have to go through this new office. All your police will be registered there. They have to go through checks and psychological testing. All your records have to be kept with them. All disciplinary records have to be forwarded to them. Everybody has to ultimately become full-time certified, even if they don't work for you as full-time, over the next 3 years. So yeah, there's going to be a big change in policing. This all passed this spring.
Yeah. As I understand it, a town, it doesn't necessarily mean that we will have to have more full-time officers. If we want to hire them to work part-time, they still have to have, they will have to now have all the qualifications and training that a full-time officer has.
Right, and that's going to become problematic for a lot of communities, because once
Yeah.
these officers are certified full-time, there's a lot of communities that are still hiring. Now, we assume at some point that will fill, and that then full-timers will be taking part-time jobs. But in the meantime, you know, as we certify a lot of full-timers, they're going to get full-time jobs if that's what they want to do.
Yeah,
If they don't want to do that, we suspect we'll just lose some people to the field. They just won't,
yes.
they'll just drop
Okay.
out of being officers altogether.
But the ones that we have now are going to be grandfathered.
Yes, as long as
So-
as long as within whatever window of time they're given, they take that bridge academy.
Yes.
They can't stay that way forever. They won't be grandfathered forever.
Okay. So the question I have, and the reason I'm bringing it up now, and the reason he called me is money. What are we going to do about money for this academy?
And their problem is that no one knows how many hours it is. They're going back and forth on the amount of hours. They're going back and forth on the cost, whether the state will pay some of it, whether the communities will be responsible for all of it. There has not been any determination on that. A lot of seminars are happening. I think I'm on one on the 25th of this month. So there's a lot of information going around, but no one knows by July 1st what's actually going to be out there. The state has not stepped up to say how much they will give for free or pay for. No one knows at this point how that's all going to play out.
So this meeting, you're going to the meeting that they're having for the
There's
town.
lots of them. There's lots of these. He went to one with officers and chiefs. I've got him one from the MMA that's happening on the 25th. There's going to be a smattering of different kinds of officials there, including some legislators. Some people are very unhappy with the legislators. They feel that they enacted this way too quickly without enough time to figure out the financial ramifications of this, because it's going to be due July 1st. It wasn't like, oh, let's do this and phase it in over a year. It's like, no, let's do it and phase it in 4 months. We're not even phase it in. Be due in 4 months. So
That's
a
what
lot
came
of people
up
are
about,
not sure what to do with the funding.
yeah, about, okay, then we'll come back and ask for money later. Well, that's why I'm trying to think and anticipate this and say, should we
If
be
you're
putting?
thinking that might be a problem later on, we could probably throw some money into our reserve fund to accommodate that. You know, a few $1,000s more, $5,000 more. If that's the case, then you don't have to go back to a special town meeting.
Well, you want to be sure.
Because that
you
would be
meet the-
unforeseen in the
You want
budget.
to be sure and meet the requirements of the reserve fund too, though.
Would
I
it?
don't know.
Would it?
I mean, I don't think the reserve fund's a bad idea, because if you don't use it there, it's very well possible we may be using it for the Shell Bridge. So in any case, there may be a whole bunch of unforeseen expenses
Yeah.
coming up. But we really, I mean, I understand that Rob wants to put together some kind of request because he doesn't want to be caught flat-footed, and he doesn't want the
Right.
town to be caught flat-footed. However,
Right.
I have absolutely no recommendation to give you. No idea at all. Now, maybe he's been somewhere where he thinks he's heard some numbers, but I don't think there's been any numbers released at
No,
all.
No,
So it's very hard to even guess, you know, it's hard to guess. If you put in too little, then you're going to be trying to backfill it. If you put in too much, then you're padding, you know, a budget that maybe never gets used. I don't even have a recommendation, honestly.
we level funded our reserve fund, as I recall.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm looking to see, I know what you're saying, Andrea, and he didn't have any idea on
No, none of us do.
amounts either, no. Just giving me the heads up that this is coming. I just don't want to see them caught without money. And some people think, well, yeah, you just have another town meeting and raise the money. Well, where does it come from at that point, you know?
Right. So I mean, I think Dan's idea of throwing 10,000 into the reserve fund may not be a bad one.
Yeah, might be.
Then he can make a request under the reserve fund for training of officers, which we knew was coming, but we had no financial knowledge.
Yeah. And he has 10 reserve officers, as I understand it. Excuse me, 10 part-timers.
Part-timers.
Yeah.
Lois, the other thing that could be a major consideration is federal law that's potentially coming for removal of qualified immunity for police officers. That could potentially impact, especially more of the part-timers, that if that immunity is removed, that the liability upon the officers may seriously compromise their desire to stay a police officer. That's another major issue that's being brought up. It's not only the training issues with Massachusetts, it's the potential removal of qualified immunity. That could have a significant impact also.
Which might mean that you might actually have a rewriting on your insurance, because right now your insurance covers your full-timers as employees. That's in our insurance because they're actually covered by our insurance. It's very possible that if once they get that removed, that they need to then be picked up. Our insurance might say, hey, we have to do something additional because now we're on the hook for unqualified immunity for all these other guys when we were only factoring in these 2 or 3.
Yes, there'll be a lot of things that are still up in the air right now.
Yeah, well, I think for now, let's talk about possibly the idea of putting some extra money into the reserve fund in anticipation of this bridge training. Jack, what do you think on that?
I think that's a very good idea.
Okay, Sue?
I agree. Good idea.
I also agree.
Okay,
I,
Now the
I
next
also
is-
agree.
okay. How much are we talking about? I mean, we're just, I know, Andrea, we have no idea of the amount, but if we
I
had,
was voting 5, but Andrea just voted 10, so.
Oh, I wouldn't go less than 10 because I hate to have you do 5 and then you need 9,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
then you're going to town meeting for 4,000 or even another 1,000. If we can't find 1,000 or 2,000 in the police budget, he may have to cover some, you might get strapped. I mean, you could end up trying to wiggle it into the budget and go back at the end of the year and backfill him. I mean, you start to get all sorts of complicated.
I like the
Okay,
idea of
Dan Campbell-
having
Dan
something.
Campbell makes a motion to increase our reserve fund by $10,000.
Is there a
Jack?
second?
Jack
Okay.
second?
All right, further discussion? All in favor?
Dan Campbell says yes.
Bernie Parada says yes.
Tony, yes.
Sue?
Yes,
Jack?
Jack, yes.
Okay, and I'm yes. Okay, will you change the recommended amount there on our reserve fund, Andrea, please?
Done. It's done. And it's in your omnibus now too.
All set, Andrea, or want me to?
Yeah, no, you're all set. I've already changed it.
Thank you. All right, the next, I think other than the 2 enterprise funds, I think we've been through all the omnibus items. Do you have any concerns, Andrea, on any of them that we've overlooked or not?
I think not. I have one that isn't balancing right, the police salary. That's not a change in you guys, though. I have to figure out why the formula's off, but
Okay.
no, we don't. And so I've made the changes and then I will make sure that all the finance committee recommended represents all those changes
Okay,
and then transfer that all over. But then I can get the budget summary to start coming together once I get your budget in there.
Yeah.
The budget summary draws from the finance committee recommended budget.
okay. Okay, now on the 2 enterprise funds, I have asked Sue if she would lead off the discussion and we'll all, of course, have our input on it. And Jack is going to do the same for the EMS. So I've got the sewer one on top here first. So one question, Andrea, I did not see any capital items from the sewer commissioners. None.
Neither of them put in for capital items that I can see,
Okay.
other than the radio for the
Yes, all right.
10,000 for the radio, but nothing else for the
Okay,
EMS. And no, I don't have a sewer commissioner capital request.
and I believe you told us that last week that the state has not listed off the deficiencies that they're going to cite them
No.
for.
But we're gonna start working on, I'm gonna to do some work on looking at the DEP, the previous DEP inspection things, and I'm gonna try and put in, there's a new one-stop program that you can put in for, you can put in a letter of interest. So we don't have to have the project completely defined. So I'm gonna take those DEP identified deficiencies and try to mold some kind of letter of interest about the fact that the town needs to get engineering and ultimately corrections made to this. And we may be able to try and work towards some funding outside of the budget in that respect and then ultimately towards sewer projects that might be either borrowings or grants or combinations, but that's outside of this process. And that's why I don't think there's any capital request. They haven't finished the last $100,000 capital request. We're getting that bid out. So they are looking at doing some work on some roads. So I don't know what, they haven't put together that money, that budget. So they don't have a request in there, but they do have some manholes and sewer line, but they haven't put anything together that I've seen for outside of their own budget at this time.
Okay. All right, Sue, I think you have had some experience that they would be told of what the deficiencies are, and maybe that's what she's referring to. You want to go ahead?
You want me to read the? Sometimes they do. When I was on the sewer commission, a lot of times the DEP, the inspector, would let you know that, when you went through, he would tell you, but they don't always do that. I'm told that depends on who the inspector is, as to whether or not they'll, let you know what their deficiencies are.
Yeah, we have some written reports. They're older, some inspection reports, and I'm going to use those for now because they had a hearing in December in November. They had and they were supposed to come back in December with an actual report, and they just haven't shown up yet. So I think I'm just not going to wait anymore because this grant program is going to close out. So I'd like to get our foot in the door, get that open, even if it's still a work in progress. I just don't want to bypass the deadline.
Well, you can't go wrong with your collection system. So in your INI, so.
Oh, right. So I figured that at least most of that stuff has not been dealt with. Even if I pull the last 2 or 3 inspection reports, I'm going to assume those are all still active. So there's no
Right, that's
point.
all, that's the same thing. And then, of course, the whole treatment plant is a situation on its own, so.
Right. But there are grants and there are loans, and we may be looking to try and get into some of these programs. But if we don't apply for them, we don't get in. So.
Right.
All right, Sue, you want to
Sure.
go through the budget here that he's got?
Sure, differences for fiscal year 21-22 sewer department collector, 6894. Sewer wages, regular wages, $1,021.40. Part-time wages, $509.37. Sewer on-call, $128.53. Sewer department.
There was 10,000 there for overtime.
Right, wait a minute. Overtime. I've got nothing for overtime on my spreadsheet.
I've got 10,000. What have the rest got?
Is yours dated 2/17/21, Sue?
I think that's what it was. I think I've got the wrong one. Let me look.
Up in the left-hand
216.
corner.
216.
Okay, because they took $10,000 out of the assistant maintenance and moved it into overtime.
Okay.
That's all they did, is they took that to 10 and they dropped the maintenance one to 15,520.
Okay.
So they just shifted that 10 from maintenance to overtime.
Okay.
The
Okay.
only
I don't have
difference.
that on my sheet. Okay, so I see that. I can understand where they did that, but I didn't see that on, like I said, I didn't see that on my
Rest
sheet.
of you have it on yours.
Do you have, Sue, can you look at the spreadsheet I sent today, the line item by account, the purple, the omnibus?
Sure. Give me 1 second. I got to go back to another.
Yeah, if you go to line item by account, which is a purple tab.
Yep.
And you go down, they're all the way at the bottom. There's EMS and above that is sewer.
Okay, give me a minute. I had to go to a different.
Yeah. You'll see that newer budget. It's after the general budget.
I've got the articles and be open the wrong thing.
It should be budget summaries a tab, omnibus budget's a tab, and then you have a purple tab that says line item by account. You look at the bottom tabs.
That's school district. Hold on.
Yeah, they're down below, all the O1s.
can't seem to,
Are you on the line item by account?
no, I've got draft warrants. What I've got from you today was the
Oh.
draft warrants.
Okay, I'm talking about a different spreadsheet that I sent you on Friday.
On Friday, which was the 5th then.
I sent you with the updated Zoom link as a reminder, I sent you a spreadsheet that says budget
Wait.
workbook fiscal
Got it, I
22.
think. Got it,
That's
okay.
what I'm working off of. That has all the newer,
Way down the bottom.
see the purple tab, line item by
Yep.
account? You click on that
Just
and you go
Scrolling
down,
down.
scroll down to about row 500.
I'm getting there.
You'll hit the sewer.
500 sewer, got it.
That's the new
Okay, I
spreadsheet.
see it now, 10,000. And then on-call is $128.53. And then I see where they took the $10,003 out of sewer department wages, assistant maintenance. And I guess that must be where they put it up into the overtime.
Yes.
Okay, then sewer commissioners, there's an increase of $29.41. And then way down at the bottom, be line 531, the debt principal, there is a negative of $20,000. And interest on notes is a negative of decrease of $2,097. And I think that's because those notes are done, as I recall.
And they have another year, I believe. They over budgeted them. I don't know why. The payment last year was 23,000. You can see it was made.
Mhm.
And I confirmed with the treasurer, it's exactly the same payment this year, 23,000 and 1903. So I don't know why there was 43 in there. Probably just because they didn't check before they did the budget last year.
Looks like it was
So,
that way the year before as well, though.
yes, they were, somehow it got confused. That's not their payment. That 43,000 is the ambulance. Somebody was putting the two together and making the same payment. I don't know who did that a number of years ago somehow, because they've been carrying 40,000 in that line item for a while. Might be why they have 190,000 in their certified enterprise fund. I don't know, because they're turning 20 grand a year into it.
Mhm. So their
Um,
overall budget looks like it's a decrease because of that.
Mostly, yeah.
17,562.35.
But I did tell them that that's only got another year or two, and that if they're looking to borrow to do some work, that they should get their capital plan together and look to borrow in the next year or two and backfill that 23,000 and keep that budget steady by actually getting some capital projects that might cost them 23 to 25 grand a year.
Mhm.
And rather than let that drop off the roll.
Yeah, you don't ever let it go.
Because then when
Keep
you put it
where it
back
is.
on, the rate will jump.
And that'll go right into the enterprise fund anyway.
Right, so what they want to do is they want to look at the next year or two on some of their projects, start getting them lined up. And if they have to do some short-term notes for 5 years at 25,000 a year or something, do 5-year notes and put that 25 in and just get that capital project to go right through and keep that 23, 25 steady in the budget. That's my recommendation for them for capital, to do capital costs. Plus, they now have 193 in their enterprise, so hopefully that also will help them
They have
next year. Yeah, they're certified at 100. I can give you the numbers. They came in,
Okay.
the number was certified. It's actually in that spreadsheet. If you look at the sewer enterprise tab, see the green tab?
Yes.
No, line 20 says note, certified enterprise fund sewer 191,945.
Okay, yep.
They were certified at.
Okay. The concern we had when we talked with them was the fact that they are trying to, they want to give the sewer commissioners 2-1, wanted to give a raise to the sewer plant operator. And as I understand it, he came to work in May last year, and they have not done an evaluation. And my concern is that we have a compensation plan, personnel policy that's on the website with a compensation plan. And it provides for, step increases and so forth. And if there's a change in classification, there's a procedure for that. So I'm I don't like violating the personnel policy. If you start it with one department, there's no end to it. It's gonna have a domino effect, and there'll be other departments or unions or whatever that are going to learn of something like that, and I think it's going to increase our costs all around. So we have a personnel policy. It was revised. I looked at it in November of 19, I believe it was, and it was approved by the select board. Of course, they don't show what changes there were at the time, but the policy was approved by the select board at that time in November of 19. So that's my concern with this. Do we recommend something that is a violation of the personnel policy?
Well, why is there something violating the personnel policy? I mean, the personnel policy was established 20 years ago to get away from the good old boys network and provide some concrete framework for how to treat and compensate employees. Why are all of a sudden is this administration moving away from that?
That's a good question. I don't, because the pay plan has been updated every year with the COLAs. So it should be current. And that's something the COLAs get applied to those figures every year. So it should be current. When you break a rule, then you have no rules. That's the end, the way I look at it. And there was a purpose to it, and I thought we had something that was something we would follow.
Well, it's been followed dozens of times in the past 20 years, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and there's a committee set up that which is a procedure for reviewing a position. If a position has changed in its duties, there's a procedure set up to have a review to see whether it warrants a change in classification for the position. And that's been used in the past at times too. So how do the rest of you feel about this?
I think the sewer commission, their intent, now again, this is based on what they've said, or they're, especially from the chair, was that the market for a sewer plant operator it's a difficult position to fill, very competitive. So they felt that there was a need, or they had to take the initiative to try to either recruit or keep this individual here in an environment when sewer plant operators are few and far between. I think they felt it was necessary to, I'm not saying violate, but go around the policy. I'm not saying they were right, but I think that was their intent.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
I think there's also a lack of knowledge. They didn't know how to proceed and how this affects as far as doing that. So I think it's more the fact they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Or how it affected the other employees in the town as far as doing that. But again, it was I think they did it exactly what Bernie said as far as doing that. They've had a heck of a time trying to get someone to operate the plant.
They
And
actually offered the job to somebody who accepted and then within a week or two pulled out. So this was their second candidate. So
So
they
it was
did
like
offer him a job with a review in the 6-month period with a potential raise if he's doing okay. They didn't do a formal review, which is what they probably should have done. But then it comes to their attention that they actually never did do the review and potential raise, and now they're running in arrears of having promised that. So when they hired him, they did offer him, in their defense, they did offer him, and it is in the minutes, to look at his position in 6 months' time and reconsider his rate.
Yeah, so it was a carrot that they were offering him to try to make sure he stayed here for a period of time as far as doing that. Now, the other the other part of that coin, if you refuse it, does that mean the person might get upset and say, see you later?
Well,
I went through, go ahead, Jack.
My question is this a change in grade or step?
That,
I think they're adding 2 steps.
yes.
Correct, yeah.
The
And
rate-
I don't have a problem myself with, if it's within the same grade, finding out that someone's experience in the past is worth more than a couple years and moving them up a few steps. And we have done that with employees before. I'm definitely against arbitrarily changing the grade of a position. But if it's within the same grade and they feel his experience wasn't recognized enough when they hired him, and they said when they were sure it was, and they want to move him up a couple steps, that's something we have done in the past.
These are steps, not grade.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just
Well, then,
compensate somebody for experience.
right. I think, well, I won't name any names, but we've done that with other employees in the past in terms of, they requested a look at their position from the grade level and experience level. And the grade wasn't changed, but their experience was reevaluated and was worth this, increased steps. That still conforms to the personnel policy.
It does.
Yeah. And also, let's be honest with you, the sewer commissioners, take a look at how many operators we've had in the last couple of years, is they were between a rock and a hard place. I mean, I cannot, criticize them when you have a very little choice in the matter, and we need to have a sewer plant that needs to operate. So again, it would be easy to criticize, but I'm not going to.
Well, if it's just steps and not an arbitrary change in grade, I think we should go with it.
Okay, Jack, make a motion.
Well, I move we approve the salary request from the sewer commissioners.
Would that be a step raise, right?
Well, whatever if
Yeah.
it's with the same grade and it's a change in steps, I think that's a reasonable approach to the issue.
Dan Campbell seconds that.
Okay, my concern, just so you know what I did, I went back through the minutes and they've done their minutes for the whole last year. And there was nothing that they had told him about that, and the fact that they hadn't reviewed it.
Yeah, there was though. Rob pulled a set of minutes where it doesn't say directly to him what they're going to give him, but I'm pretty sure that the minutes that Rob pulled says that they are going to review the position in 6 months.
But they then didn't do it.
Well, I think that was just an oversight, but I'm not arguing for or against this, but I think there was some mention in the minutes that they were going to do it. They failed to do it.
Yes.
But there was some mention, I think, upon hiring him in May of last year.
Okay, we've got a motion to recommend the amount that the sewer commissioners are requesting for the pay of the sewer plant operator. Is that right, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, and it's been seconded. Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Dan Campbell says yes.
Tony says yes.
Bernie Parada says yes.
Sue says yes.
Jack
Jack?
says yes.
And I'm going to
Jack?
abstain. Okay. Okay,
Are you guys going to vote the whole rest of the budget? Just so I know if I can fill in the finance committee recommended column, how you want that filled in.
did anybody have a problem with, there was quite a lot of overtime there. That was the 10,000, wasn't it?
That, yeah,
Yep.
but that came out of the, they had that in their budget last year on a different line.
Yes. Yeah, the
Yeah,
next
just
line
moved around.
is
It's the same.
on call. Now it's overtime. No problems, nobody.
No.
Nope.
So I guess your answer is yes, Andrea.
Okay, I know, I'm just trying to make sure when I put in the finance committee recommended column, which
Yeah,
will
yeah.
feed the other spreadsheet, that you guys have actually made that determination and not,
Yeah.
that's not filling in the blanks.
Right. I think the answer is yes. It goes
Okay.
with what they've submitted here.
Okay.
They still have a couple of loans they're paying off, I believe. Yeah.
Yes,
I got the votes on
I
those
think I
things.
have the chart actually.
Yeah. However, I do think that they should adhere more to their policies about having an evaluation when they say they said they were going to and so forth.
Yeah, they have
Okay.
two more years. It looks like they borrowed in 2017. They borrowed 115,000. And their principal seems to be around 23,000 every year. And they're at
Yeah.
46,000 outstanding. So looks like a couple more years from what I can see here.
Yes, now all this is coming out of their enterprise fund.
Correct.
Okay, and then there was another one, 2020 annual town meeting of,
Those were those were articles.
yes, that's what
Yeah.
I'm going by, yeah. Okay. Then next, we will take up the EMS budget request. Jack, you want to lead that off?
Well, we've been asking November and February for some sort of revenue and expense summary going forward. And I couldn't find one in my information. Found a capital sheet, which changed a little from what had been discussed in the previous meeting.
Right, I updated it once he got some certified numbers.
Well, I was under the, I don't know if everyone was, that every 10 years a new ambulance would be needed. But now it's ambulance 1, it's 23 years, ambulance 2, it's 20 years. What's the reason for that?
I don't know, I gave him the chart and those are the years he's putting in that those ambulances would be redone. I don't generally second guess any department, including highway, when they determine the age of their equipment, if they think they can do 20 years on an ambulance. I think the secondary ambulance, they're going out 20 because it doesn't run as often.
Well, they're
There's
both 20. The
a- Right,
second ambulance is 23.
so that's the capital plan that was discussed last time. I don't think that number has changed. I think that was still, that was in the last presentation. I mean, that it hasn't moved year.
10 years is my recollection, Jack, that when this last one was purchased, he was told that this would have to go 10 years. So I
Also, I was under the understanding a new ambulance would be 350,000, and you got one here 9 years in the future, only 300,000. What resulted in that change?
I don't know that there's a change. I just put in a number that as I knew it. I mean, we can change that to 350.
Well, you're giving us this information. I'm just asking.
I
questions.
understand, but this is the first time we've, tried to put it together in this format. So we're trying to create this, to be obvious, to obviously be informational. I was under the understanding that the number 300 is what had been discussed, but that I could be wrong. Maybe that was not the number that was discussed. I don't recall 350. I can't say that I clearly recall 300, except that I thought that's the number that was mentioned. Because I think this year, the last one was 200
250.
or
It was
250. It was
250.
250. Right, so I guess it was up to 3, but again, if we want to put it in at 350, I can't say that
Well-
I can predict what the cost of an ambulance is going to be. If Mark wants to put it in at 350, or you guys feel that it should be 350 to be safer. But they're listed at 20 year.
A realistic approach to all this. The things seem to be a moving target.
I don't know that, and the meetings I've been at, this is what I thought was representative of the discussion. If you think that number has been moving around, I'm not aware of that. I thought 300 was the number that was under discussion. Maybe that's my mistake. I'm not sure. I don't remember 350, but I'm sure we could make that 350 if that's what we think should be.
Well, you tell us. I'm just asking about a discrepancy from what we were thinking and what was on the spreadsheet you provided.
Well, this spreadsheet is just a slight modification from the last one, so I don't think the last one said 350.
I don't recall seeing a spreadsheet like this before.
I sent one out prior to one of your the week after you asked for a capital plan. I said you will have one
Right.
next Monday, and that's the first one I sent out. And I think
And
it was 300 on that.
Right, that's the only one I have.
Yeah.
I have.
I have a new one that I just put together today. I think I attached it in the email that went today with the new warrant update.
Okay, I did not get to look at that yet.
But there's not much change to it. There's just, I put in the revenue down below once we got a number and figured out what a number would be. So, but I didn't touch when things were due or how much the cost was. It was my understanding that 300 was the number we've been working with all along, and so I didn't touch that number.
What is the most recent certified excess revenue?
Well, that's tricky because it turns out that the treasurer or the accountant did not move the money that was voted at town meeting. So that number has to be added back in. It shows up on the excess revenue as owed from other accounts. So it's only, the excess revenue is certified very low, but $96,000 is due to the ambulance account because it was not moved by June 30th. It will be moved. It just wasn't moved when they took the snapshot at DOR. So they're showing 25,931. To that, you have to add the 96,000. This wasn't moved by June 3rd, 96,784. And then the expenditure of the cardiac monitor of 37,000 because it hasn't been purchased yet. However, we're going to be returning that funding back because that money is not going to be expended. So that will be closed out this year. That money will go back because it's not going to be expended from their excess funds. So that sheet shows about 160,000. I don't have the exact dollar amount till all those numbers get funneled back and recertified with DOR. So about 160,000 is what will ultimately be the number once the money gets moved by the accountant or treasurer. I'm not sure who moves that funding. But basically on the sheets from DOR, it shows that 96,784 is due from other funds. And that's what you voted last year.
That's a 1-year increase in the excess revenue, 96,000?
No, that 96,000 is money you voted last year to put into the account towards, if you look at your budget, towards expenditures, towards the payment of the ambulance. All those things were
right.
taken out of the ambulance account, but that money has to now be put back in. So yeah, when they made the payment for the ambulance, they took it out of the ambulance account, but town meeting voted to pay that. So that money's due back to ambulance.
So
Go ahead,
the
Jeff.
total excess, you're saying the total excess revenue is around 160,000.
Yes, that's what it should come in at once we get the balance sheet straightened out past June 30th. Yes. Because the cardiac monitor is 37,000 and that's going to be closed out. We're not spending that. And 96,784 should be due back into that account because the town voted to put that money in, and it's been taken out of ambulance, but it hasn't been reimbursed back in. And they were certified at 25,931. So when you add those three numbers together, you get just around 160,000.
Okay, and for against the tax levy, well, I get so many spreadsheets here, but you're looking for like 42,000 for operating costs and 50,000+ for the loan for the ambulance. Is that correct?
I've got to look at, I'll look at the spreadsheet I have here and what his request to you is. Line item by account, that's his, and then I have his spreadsheet that he passed into you. Let me just go to it. You should all have that spreadsheet. I just got to get to the right one. This is, oops, I'm in the highway department. That's not going to help. That's police. That's fire. So it looks to me like his request, based on his spreadsheet that he gave you from 2/8/21, is the ambulance payment. And then it looks like request from taxation was 40,625.82. And then the ambulance payment plus interest, like, looks like 55,884. So the whole thing again is, I don't have my calculator in front of me, right around 96. The same, looks pretty much the same as last year. Pretty much level funded.
Okay. Why aren't you recommending taking some of the excess revenue to take some of the burden off the taxpayers?
He did make that recommendation at his meeting with you.
Well, I don't think it shows up on the latest spreadsheets.
Well, I haven't made any revenue expectations. All I have done is put in the budget finance. It's just plugged in. I didn't make that, but if you look at his request, he talked about taking either the ambulance payment or the town or some of the town payment out of his fund. Yes, he mentioned that at his budget hearing.
But the spreadsheet we got last Friday for the EMS Enterprise Fund shows 94,000.
Yeah, that's just me
Coming
leaving it.
up.
That just carried over. That's just me plugging in the numbers. I would look at his budget spreadsheet he provided you. He actually pulled the whole 55,884 for the ambulance payment out. And I think Lois raised the objection. She said, no, that's what the town voted to cover. So then the other number would be the 40,625. So I didn't put any number in because I didn't know what you guys were recommending. So that was just me plugging in numbers. That this sheet is not his sheet. His sheet is the one you should have. He sent you a pretty large sheet.
I got a whole dining room table full of sheets.
I know, me too. I keep them in a book. But he has a sheet he gave you on 2/8, and it's a big one. It has all the current rates of the employees. It's the master sheet that he gives you at budget time. And he did, he said request from EMS Enterprise Fund excess revenue. He was possibly going to do the payment, but remember I said Lois objected to that just because she said that is the town meeting agreed to pay. So then he said, okay, we could do the 40,625 if you wanted to pay the full amount.
I was wondering the latest spreadsheet it got hadn't had that.
It doesn't show it because I didn't know where to go with that.
Okay.
So it automatically feeds in there it's a formula. You know, some of it's all formulated. So I just left it alone until you guys make a decision and then I fill it in. So,
Okay.
but I didn't know whether you wanted, which numbers you wanted to put there, or some different number, or a request, or a recommendation, or. So, I mean, I can change that around. I mean, his request initially was different than yours, but we can put in the 4625 if that makes it easier.
Well, would that come in under a discussion on sources of funds? As we
Right,
go
I mean,
forward?
that's really your discussion, sources of funds. He's making a
Right.
request to pay for part of it. It's really you guys that get to determine or make a recommendation back on what you think for sources of funds.
My recollection is that he has never, the ambulance payment has never shown up in his budget.
No, it hasn't. You're right. So that was just it was just a potential.
And putting it in this year and then asking for taxpayer money to fund his operating expenses doesn't make any sense.
So you want to reverse it. That's just a possibility. Yes.
Yeah,
I think he was just looking for a way to make the offer that Jack is suggesting, one way or another.
well, this is the fifth year, the fifth payment on the, and final payment on the ambulance. And it's never been covered out of their enterprise fund because it was a town meeting vote. We pay the principal and the interest. And I don't see any reason to change now and put it in the other way, especially when he's asking for money for the operating expense. It's kind of like a chess game. What do you label it? You know, but Jack, you have anything more? Go ahead.
No, I've probably confused everyone enough, so if they have any other questions.
Okay, I just think back to 3 years, the third year passed. This is the third now coming up. We're going back 2 more. Was the first time that we had been asked to supplement the budget with money from the general fund, from our funds, town funds. And supposedly that was a 1 year only type of thing, and we weren't going to be asked for that anymore. And that was, I haven't got the figures right here. I thought I had, but anyway, that was 40 something. And then, but then come the next year, there was again a request. It dropped, but there was still a request to supplement the enterprise fund. And then this year too. And so what has happened that it's not self-sufficient? That's what we're looking for in an enterprise fund. And, you know, the forecast that he had when he first did it was 1 year only, and then it becomes a regular thing. Does anybody else have recollections about that?
No, I agree. That is the recollection I had. It would be a 1 year only from the taxpayers for that year, and there would be no further requests of the town or the taxpayers for additional funds for operations.
And the difference was going to be funded by the extra trips to Bernardston.
Yes, the extra revenue from the additional runs, yes.
But the revenue, meaning the insurance payments by the patients that are transported.
Correct.
Okay.
Andrea, I have one question I want to ask you.
Sure.
Obviously, for fiscal year 22, we're expecting a donation from Bernardston again of $10,000 and also a payment from Irving for ambulance service for fiscal year 22 of $15,000. Where is that money going to? Where is it going to be placed? Is it going into the ambulance, the EMS enterprise fund, or some separate account, or how is that going?
There's an ambulance donation account
There's an ambulance donation account.
that
And
will
so
accept those funds.
okay, so Irving is also going to pay into the ambulance donation account. Is that correct?
Right, it's the easiest way to get to ensure that that money is going to go forward for an ambulance, which is what we got the impression is the major concern, that if we're using these vehicles that a town is paying for for other towns, then the best thing to do is to make sure that we get some compensation for at least that. And that if they then are paying for themselves in terms of paying for themselves in terms of billing, then they would be paying for themselves that way. So we're trying to make that happen. We're trying to work this out. The ambulance isn't set up as a true enterprise fund. I hope you guys realize that. It's never been accepted legally as a true enterprise fund, from what I understand. But we're operating it as if it is.
What do you mean by,
To make an enterprise fund, you have to go to the state legislature and create an enterprise district like sewer. I don't think you ever did that for ambulance. You're treating it as an enterprise fund. You've gone to the, this process to make it self-sufficient and make it its own thing. But I don't think legally it's ever actually been created as an enterprise fund. It's actually a town department, I believe. I'm not sure that changes anything.
or is it something we ought to be thinking of doing? That's all.
I mean, you're operating it this way and you're funding it this way. So I don't think there's any problem with that. But I don't know. I haven't seen any legislation that shows it's been turned into an enterprise fund. Maybe I've missed that. But you'd have to go get a bill before the state, and then they'd have to be signed by the governor. And that's because an enterprise fund then becomes a taxation entity. It gets much more complicated if you do that. Maybe you don't want to go that route.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I thought it was going to be self-sufficient. And now we're into the third year of our taxpayers supplementing the enterprise fund. And yet we're serving 2 other towns now. And it just seems that our taxpayers are.
Well, I think you're proposing not to do that this year, just pay for the ambulance, correct?
Yeah, is he, the ambulance payment, yes. And he take the rest of it out of his funds?
Well, that's what you're proposing he do, right?
Mhm.
Well,
I think if Mark sends me another text, because he's texting me fast and furious here. I think that
Okay.
he's accepting of that.
So we're just paying for the ambulance out of taxpayer funds, which is what it was in the past.
Mhm.
Does that mean he can fund his own operating expenses?
But he's
Apparently,
been- That's what he's proposing.
So no more taxpayer money to
only
supplement.
for the ambulance.
Yeah, and that was a town meeting vote anyway.
So I've typed it in here that it would be 49,884 and 6,000 requested, because that's the ambulance. And that department receipts will raise 38,523. The total
Which is-
441,307.
Which
So you're
was-
only on for 55,884.
Is that the principal and interest on the ambulance loan?
Yes, 49,884 and 6,000, because it's
For
like
the interest.
5,980 or 90 something for the interest. So we've rounded it to 6, but yes, so 55,884, which is on his sheet. Now there's no guarantee. I mean, something crazy could happen and he could be back, because something weird happens. But yes, he's trying very hard to make this a self-sufficient enterprise operation.
Okay. How do
As
the
best
rest
he
of,
can.
Jack, comments on that?
I agree with the numbers. I just can't get out of my mind we're subsidizing Bernardston with town funds, whether they be from the taxpayers this year or funds they would be using going forward. But again, that's a decision the select board has made, but it's, I don't think it's an equitable decision. It's going to cost money to have this increased coverage, and I'm in favor of that. But everyone should share in funding it, in my opinion. But to me, that's not a financial issue, but it's up to the select board.
I think the argument is that right now you're doing exactly what Bernardston's do. I mean, you're paying the ambulance. Don't get me wrong. We understand that. But in terms of operating, everybody will be paying their own way.
Well, Bernardston
Will be
is-
paying their
we're
operating through their.
subsidizing
Ha-
operate 40,000.
Not this year.
Well,
You're not using any taxpayer money except for the ambulance.
What you'd say, what I think what the
No,
difference, yeah, it would accrue in the enterprise fund if you didn't have Bernardston.
No, it wouldn't, because it wouldn't accrue because you wouldn't have the billing for Bernardston. You can't have the revenue and not the expense. They're joined together.
Oh, yeah.
So if you cut Bernardston out from the expense, you also cut them out of the revenue. So you can argue that you don't want to do anything for Bernardston because of the payment to the ambulance. But if there's no other taxation coming out of it, then essentially everyone's paying their own way.
But you see, what they find with even the Northfield one, the payments, well, we know that Medicare and Medicaid don't pay enough to cover the cost of the service.
And that's
the
why
same-
we need increased
That's the
runs.
same thing, whether it's Northfield, Bernardston, or Irving.
I mean, we've talked about it many times, Mark and I. If we were to eliminate service to Bernardston and now to the small portion of Irving that we're proposing, then the town of Northfield, in order to have 24-hour every day of the week service, would have to cough up
Yeah,
$150,000 because he'd have to eliminate that revenue, and he'd still have to cover those shifts. I mean, you still have to have people on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you choose to do that, now you could cut the service. You could say, we're not covering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're only doing 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And yes, you could then cut the cost to the town, but then you'd have to have somebody, you'd have to pay for coverage. You'd have to contract with somebody or be on call with someone else. So, I understand the concept of the only way to have that amount of coverage is to bring in more revenue. Because if we can eliminate Bernardston, but the town of Northfield is going to have to pay something, or he has to cut service. I mean, there's no way around that. This enterprise fund cannot run self-sufficient without taxation if you eliminate the revenue from other runs. You can do it. I mean, it's doable. The problem is that you can't have the same amount of people on call. You can't be open the same hours. You can't guarantee everyday service. You just have a lot more uncovered time when the residents would have to rely on. Because
I
they wouldn't be able
understand
to
what you're
afford
saying,
that.
but you also started out by saying you have the revenue and you have costs associated with it. So
Yeah, so if you said we don't take Bernardston, you said that if we take Bernardston's expenses out, you also then have to cut their revenue. So yeah,
Yes.
where there's
Yeah.
some expense to going to Bernardston, no one's
Yeah.
denying that, but what we're getting in return is the revenue as well.
Yeah.
Which is helping to run the department. And so what we have to try to balance out is, this word subsidized, either way, I don't like the word subsidized because I don't think subsidize is the right word. They're not subsidizing us, we're not subsidizing them. That's not what's going on here. We have to get more revenue in order to provide the level of service that the town is receiving. And nobody's arguing that the town is receiving bad service. Everyone's saying the town is receiving excellent service. And so is Bernardston. But we need their revenue in order to provide that service to everybody. Our revenue too. No one's saying Bernardston's more or less important. It's just a question of we have to have enough revenue to provide the level of service that the ambulance service is committed to providing. And he's trying very hard to do that in the self-sufficient way that you'd like. But if you eliminate serving Bernardston, you eliminate all their revenue. You eliminate their service, you eliminate their revenue, then this cannot be self-sufficient. 100% guarantee you, this department cannot run in any self-sufficient way. Not even close. Because we'll lose $100,000 plus of revenue from Bernardston. We got to make
But-
that up somewhere, or we have to cut service.
But the thing is, Andrea, he said that it was the necessity of running Bernardston that would be the additional revenue. Now, the same reasoning is now being used that we need the additional revenue to survive, to service
No,
parts of Irving.
That's not the logic. No, 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 no. We
Then
don't
why
need
are we-
additional
then why
revenue to
are-
service Irving.
Then why are we servicing Irving?
No, we don't need to spend money. We're not asking for taxation in Northfield to service Irving.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the reasoning you said was that we're going to service Irving because that will bring in additional revenue
It's
for
a
the,
small piece, yes. You
yeah,
have to remember that he's got a fixed budget. If you say he's got 24/7, every day of the week coverage, that's a level of budget. Put aside any revenue. Say that's $500,000. I'm just making it up, just making up a number. If it costs $500,000 for the ambulance department to run 24/7, 365 days a year, no matter where it goes, how do you pay for that?
I understand.
That's the question. The question is, okay, so the town of Northfield, say the town of Northfield supplies $300,000 in revenue through ambulance runs and billing and
Mhm.
all that. Where do you get the other 200,000? We're not changing the level of staffing by adding another revenue source so that when we're not sitting around, we're actually going to other places. Now we're saying, oh, so Bernardston kicks in 150. Oh, now we make 450. Numbers are totally fictitious. Don't quote me on anything. And so if we get 50,000 from, say, okay, now we can make more revenue, but that's to backfill already a set budget. We're not adding to the budget by increasing our revenue here. We already are staffing at a certain level. And that staffing is to make this available all the time to the town of Northfield. And yes, now we have to make it available to Bernardston because they're paying, their insurances are paying part of it. And now to this small corner of Irving. But without that revenue, someone has to step up and pay for it, or we have to cut service.
But the other thing is, where are we going with this ambulance service? We're becoming a regional ambulance service. And in reality, we're going to service Bernardston, now parts of Irving, and even Mark himself has admitted if he was asked to service Gill, he would do so. What I'm also saying is, and again, Jack has mentioned in the past, a plan or goal of where we're going is, where are we going with this? It was a surprise that was dropped on us about the town going to, the EMS going to service Irving.
I think that if you're going to change.
Just a second. That was a surprise to the finance committee. We were told, like I said, the night before the select board meeting, that we were now going to service Irving. And that, the cost that they would provide.
Not all of Irving, but yes.
Yeah, I know, a small piece, but that was dropped on us at the last minute.
Because
Now,
it was
the
an
other thing, too,
operational
is-
decision
yeah,
of the select board.
Where
I get
are
it.
we going with this? Again, this is going to be on the select board. The select board
There-
has to decide, do they want, because we're becoming a regional service.
They're going.
What is our
towards-
goals?
I'm trying to tell you, their goal is to pay for this service without any taxpayer burden to Northfield, because you've told them that's their goal. You've told them, we don't want to pay any money towards this service. In fact, we want you to save up enough money for your next ambulance. We want to be out of paying for any EMS or ambulance. How is he supposed to do that? He's going to do it, but no, he may be fine now. We're trying to do a capital plan. We've got revenue numbers in the bottom. This has only been going on since 2015. So we're 5 years in. So now we're trying to figure out what's the average going to be every year? How much can we afford from taxation? Some of this is a process. So now what we're doing is we're saying, okay, now we've got Bernardston. He's running the numbers. He's running them all the time, monthly, quarterly. Mark watches this like a hawk. I mean, if it looked like all of a sudden we were going to lose $100,000, this whole model would be completely rethought. I mean, he's not doing this to screw over the town of Northfield. He's doing this to save Northfield taxpayers in the end. Because you guys said to them, you said to him, we don't want to pay any more in taxation. And in however many years, we want you to buy your own ambulance. What I'm saying is, how can he do that if you strangle his revenue?
No, but the other thing is, we have a fiduciary responsibility to say,
Yeah.
listen, that's the other, what I'm trying to say is, we also have to see, where are we going with this in the future? We are sort
To
of
be
like,
self-sufficient.
yeah, but we're adding a community, then we add another community, but where are we going? We don't have the management structure to handle, like I said, what
Yes,
is
we
the
do.
future? No, we have one person.
No, we
One-
don't. We have a chief, we have 2 assistant chiefs, we have a training captain, we have a captain. If you look at your spreadsheet budget, you'll see there's a captain in charge of not materials, or, there's a whole structure in there. Those people
There's
are
a
all
s-
being paid. Now we're
Okay.
looking to hire a full-time person who's going to be running certain hours and covering hopefully weekends. We've been advertising for and interviewing for that position. So yeah, that was approved last year, and that's now rolled into this budget that you're not being asked, that he's asking to do out of tech, not out of taxation, but out of revenue. So I'm not sure that you haven't, I'm not trying to defend EMS other than the fact that you've put him in a bind where he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. Like, he can't increase his revenue, but he can't increase his expenses. So you want him to run this full-time ambulance service, which for a town of 3,000 people is very expensive to do. It's just very expensive to run an ambulance service. And most ambulance services that are running are becoming somewhat small regional ambulance services. You got Shelburne Falls, you've got the one up that does Ashfield and Goshen. There's 3 or 4 towns in the Hilltown ambulance service. Colerane's got a couple of towns. You can't do it for one town. Not the size we are. You can in Deerfield maybe, but Deerfield doesn't even do it. They do Deerfield, Sunderland, Whately. You can't do it on the revenue of one town. You can't. I think the fact that there's all these consortiums and different funding mechanisms, it shows you that example. There has to be inclusion of other revenue if you want to run a full-time ambulance service. Again, you can change that. You could say to him, we don't want to spend this. We don't want this much complication. We're not going to be full-time anymore. And we'll rely on getting another service in for part of the coverage. We'll contract for 12 hours a day, whatever. You can do that. But if you want him to be a full-time service, and he wrote you a document explaining his mission as he understood it, to be a full-time, every day of the week, every day of the year ambulance service, he's now been tasked with that and funding it. So I'm sitting here saying, pick one or the other, because you can't have it both ways. You can't tell him run it, but you can't increase your revenue.
But the other thing too is there's also the indirect cost that Northfield's going to shoulder. We're going to shoulder potential retirement liability. We're going to have the
They aren't
liability.
full-time employees except for this possible one.
Yeah,
if we hire
but
them.
again, we're going to shoulder that. We have
If we hire someone.
workman's compensation costs. That's what we shoulder. There's several things, the indirect costs that we shoulder.
But
that
if his budget is,
Irving and Bernardston do not.
but
So
if his
this is-
budget is 100% not paid by you, then he's shouldering it inside his department.
No, the indirect costs are still going to be shouldered by this town. But what I'm saying here is, Andrea, we need to start planning. Where are we going with this? Where is the future? Are we going to continue to grow and take on more and more communities? And do we start to change the management structure or the entire EMS, how we view it, to the changes that are occurring? I mean, it's just like we're just adding town, add another town, add another town. I mean, we have to come up with something that is different from the model we have currently. I'm talking from a management issue. So again, and the other thing too is, yes, we have, and I will use the term subsidized. We have subsidized the ambulance now, not only for the purchase of the ambulance, but the ambulance service, but the additional revenue we gave them for 2 years now already, which.
You got something in return. You got an ambulance service. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? It's not
But we're.
like,
Okay, I think what
Look,
we need,
I'm not going to keep going in circles here. I'm just saying
No,
that
I think
the select board needs to think what
It's
the
up to the
future of the
select board.
ambulance service
I
will
think
be.
that's what they do, because the management of the ambulance service is the select board's job. And so when he's come in to propose these, they've had these discussions.
yes,
That's not on the finance committee level, it's on the select board level.
No,
And
I
he
understand.
He does come and meet with them, and he has over each one of these. He has talked about his structure. He's talked about how he's doing this. You say you understand it, but then you get into it, and I can't answer it for you because it is a select board decision, and they feel
We
very
look at the
comfortable with their
financial.
decision. Correct.
We're looking at the financials.
And this
but
year,
again,
he's
too-
not asking
and
for
we're- and
anything
we're-
from you
we're-
except the ambulance
I
payment.
think
Okay.
we got it now that the town is continuing to pay off the ambulance.
Correct.
And he is going not to be asking for any taxpayer money at this town meeting. Am I right?
Correct, which the other two towns will be paying. They're paying taxpayer money, but we're not. Because we've determined that that's how we're gonna operate, and we're hosting it, and we're putting the energy and effort in, and we think that that's fair
Okay, what we're down to
for them to
is,
contribute.
so some of that, yes, Jack had said, okay, the enterprise fund would have more money in it if we didn't have some of those expenses, but that's within that fund. And the select board is over that decision as to how they expand it and so forth. So, Jack, did you have anything further on this?
No, again, I think the money to increase the coverage is well spent, and you know, if we're not asking for the taxpayers for anything but the capital expense for the ambulance, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Just one
question.
thought I have that is there any chance that what do we refer to as the newest ambulance, okay? Newest ambulance. Could that become the second ambulance when we have to get a new one? I don't know.
I think that's a future discussion. You got a few years to work out how that's all gonna
Yes,
play out, but I'm
yeah.
sure Mark would be here to talk to you about any capital.
I don't know.
We'll- You know,
I-
I can't say I'm an ambulance expert other than, you know,
I
what's
don't
on our
know.
schedule. And I'm trying to work with Mark. This is the first time we've had a capital account, and he's been very willing to work on this. And I've gotten him to put some of his other larger equipment on it, you know, so that we can start to see not just ambulances. I know that you guys saw ambulances, but there are other machines, there's other expense. Let's
Yeah.
get them on the plan. So he's been very willing to work on that, and we've been moving forward with that as well. He keeps a lot of numbers and statistics, so we're trying to figure out how that all works together. And
Sue, did you have any?
Yes, I
comment?
do have a question.
Okay.
You said earlier, and I want to make sure I'm understanding this, that it's not a true enterprise fund because it didn't go through the state and it wasn't mandated by the state as an enterprise fund.
a true enterprise fund, I don't know, true is the right word, but a legal enterprise fund is usually a separate taxing entity. So this is a quasi enterprise. They're treating it as such because it has its own revenue source and its own expenditure source. So it's being done that way by DOR on the books. But in truth, like the sewer district is also an enterprise fund because that's the mechanism. I don't think there's another mechanism for them to do it the way we're doing it, but it's a separate taxing entity. The sewer sends out its own bills.
Mhm.
The sewer has its own tax collector. The sewer has its own board, elected board. So that's a full, what you'd expect to be a full legal, distinct enterprise organization, for lack of a better word. Water districts are that way. And in the law says that if your district doesn't have its own certain setup, that you can use the towns. And so they've set up using the town as the mechanism, and they pay an indirect cost charge to the town for that service for the sewer. The ambulance really is a town department. We've just turned it into an enterprise organization financially.
Okay, and
I have
I
a
guess
quick-
that's my concern. That's part of my concern is what is the liability to the town? If something happens and someone gets sued, what's the liability to the town? And what's the oversight? You said it's the Board of Selectmen, but I guess the other thing I have is, you know, and maybe it's not for Finance Committee, and tell me if it isn't, but what's the oversight for the people, the management of the EMS?
So I work much closer with them than I do with sewer. I have nothing to
But
do with
for example,
sewer.
if there's a complaint
Yes,
against one of the people on the EMS, who oversees that? Who takes the disciplinary action on that?
me and the select board.
Okay, and then liability wise, for example, like I said, if there's some sort of a medical lawsuit somewhere, is the town liable at that point because it is a town department?
Well, they have very different laws because it's an ambulance department. So the rules are a little bit different. It's not like, it's not like your highway department. But you guys voted several years ago, before I got here, to do 111F and 111E or F or whatever. So you voted to assume any kind of, and you did it for fire and EMS and police.
Mhm.
So the town voted that in place some 3 or 4 years ago. So if somebody, you don't have workers' comp, you have 111F.
111F, yeah.
And the town voted that.
Okay, but that was
a town
before,
meeting vote.
not to kick a bee's nest or open a can of worms here, but they're still responsible and liable if they're working in Bernardston or Irving. The town of Northfield's still responsible for that. Is that correct?
The 111F is correct.
Yeah, that's, okay.
Yes, yeah.
For 111F, Andrea, but what about liability for any
That's what I'm
actions?
saying.
It's insured through our insurance, through the
Now, the
town's
other-
insurance.
Yeah. Now, the other question I have, since you're saying this is more, it's not a full enterprise fund. If the enterprise fund runs a deficit, who is responsible to cover the deficit? Is it
town
the
is.
town? The town
It
is.
says the town department. It's not an enterprise entity legally separated from the town, like, for example, the sewer district.
So if they ran a deficit, we would be required to make do with it, correct? We
We'd
would
have to figure it out. We'd have to figure out the funding, yes.
Okay, that's,
The law allows that, that if
To a point, yes. So you would have an ability to work on solving that process, yes.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the department, yes. So it's not like you'd have to come up tomorrow with the money. You'd be able to, they would maybe, be able to borrow, make payments on it out of their funds or what, I'm not sure. We'd have to, I haven't seen that happen. But yes, it was something we would have to work on solving, but the law does have provisions to address that. It's not like you guys would have to cough up all the funding tomorrow.
Dan, any thoughts on this?
No, I'm just sitting here listening to you, like, as far as
Okay.
doing it.
Tony?
Well,
Sorry, 111M, not F for the first responders. But
Okay.
I think when talking about Bernie talking about a plan, seems like we're doing things piecemeal. We needed more funds. Go to Bernardston. Somehow they have to pay 10,000. Then we pick up part of Irving. They pick up 15,000. We're operating like a regional ambulance facility, but we don't have the structure of a regional ambulance facility. I think that's, maybe I'm wrong, Bernie, but I think that's kind of what you're getting at. And there doesn't seem to be any movement towards even investigating that, like something like down in Deerfield or.
sure we have. Oh, yes, we have. We had a
Well, but-
FERCog study done on it. Yes,
And
it was very
if I'm not
expensive for
mistaken, the
Northfield.
FERCog studies had all sorts of things about how the towns in a regional would fund into the facility, into the enterprise fund or the regional one. I can't remember all the different things, but they did have a whole bunch of statistics about that. Now, I don't think there's been any hint of that as far as Bernardston or parts of Irving.
That's how actually the part of Irving came up. It was explored with various communities. It's only as the communities came up, it talked about Gale said, no, we don't want in. We couldn't create the entity without the pieces of the entity. That was one of the issues. The second issue is it's a very expensive model, Tony. This town would definitely be paying for that model because it becomes a very different beast when you start to do that. I mean, it really does. You start like, look at the sewer department. I mean, it's very different in how they're managed. And the town the ratepayers are paying. a fair amount of money. And look at how much it is. It's how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's only a quarter of the town. I mean, I don't know how many people are on the sewer, but it's pretty limited, and they're paying $300,000 a year for their budget. This is 400,000, and you're serving everybody. So it gets expensive really fast when you start to talk about that kind of overhead. We can certainly, I think he's given you, and we're certainly happy to provide you again with the kind of information that Deerfield has. That's $1 million department, you know, I mean, and he said all along, heck, you want to run a department like Deerfield, you know, he's more than willing. I mean, they've got full-time EMTs and captains and staff, and then you're running 24/7, and you have an obligation to those towns in a very different way. When you start telling them that they got to pay you $100,000 a year, you know, it becomes a very different entity. So I don't think the goal is for him to expand to the size of that kind of $1 million department. But these opportunities have come up. It's not that anybody's out there soliciting them. If this is to grow anymore, we've already discussed that there would have to be a different kind of structure. This can't now take on the town of Gill in the structure we're in. It would have to change.
I remember
We're not taking on a fourth town.
And what I expected from the COG study was there's this opportunity, or you could go with this kind of structure, or you could go with this, and this would cost this, and I didn't see that in that study. But
It was not strong enough. It was very loose. It did talk about EQV and what each town would pay. It's an EQV but versus population assessment. And they did some of those numbers, but it probably wasn't as formal if we hired a company to give us a full, you know,
study,
assessment. That one was
Well-
a freebie, so we got what we paid for in some respects, but it gave us some sense of the numbers, gave us some sense, and it did put us in touch with Irving, because he was looking for that tiny little piece, because Orange wouldn't cover it, Montague wouldn't cover it.
Are we ready to vote on this, or do you want to discuss this further? What we're talking about now is,
And we do have language in our contract that says deficits can come back to the towns. So if it does say that if you read the agreement, that we are not alone on the hook for any deficit for the department.
it would
It's
go
written into
back.
both agreements that we can come back to them for deficits. So the town has some protection there.
So what we're talking about now is, I think you're saying he's agreeing to modifying his request to take out the ambulance payment and leave that the town does it, and you take care of putting that into the budget where we need to have an
Yep.
article to pay it.
I've already done that. It would be in his article, and it's just about how you raise it, how much from department receipts, how much from tax levy, and I've saved it.
Okay.
I'll send you all these updated sheets tomorrow after today's meeting. So I've already done the EMS enterprise fund where I've changed department
But
receipts, and the tax levy is only at the 55,884 for the ambulance.
Yeah, I think we need a way of paying that besides just showing it in this summary of the.
You can
Okay.
decide whether it's on the levy or however you're gonna pay it.
Okay, so we're talking about that in a motion here, and also removing the request for any taxpayer funding to the enterprise fund for this year. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, Jack, you want to make the motion, or you want somebody? I guess you've been in on it. Following it.
I move we recommend the EMS budget with the provision that it be funded out of the receipts, the excess revenue, and the ambulance loan be funded out of the taxpayers. Is that covered, Andrea?
Yeah, I think so. That's clear.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, Tony seconded it. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, and I'll call on you individually to make sure. Bernie,
I vote aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. So it's unanimous vote. Okay. You're all set then, Andrea, with,
Yep, I've already got it.
okay. So Andrea, I think that we're down to the warrant articles, am I correct?
Correct. I
Other
think that's
than,
all the budgets, yes.
yeah, we did the omnibus article and we've done the 2 enterprise ones.
Yep.
Okay.
And I tried to put the warrant together because it just seemed to me, I mean, it's not perfect. I haven't run all the language, but I thought it was the best way to review it in total, just to put everything in there. But you will have to discuss whether you support it or whether you want to fund it. And once I can put everything in that once you decide it's a yes, even though you may have to revisit it. And then you can look at funding and then we can see what happens to the levy and your funding
Yeah, I'd
sources.
kind of like to go through and see if we support the articles. And in what form. Then Andrea can tally up the
Yeah.
total amount we're looking for, and then we'll see the sources of funds afterward.
Right, you can see how close you are to things and then you can decide what you're funding with what.
Okay, all right.
I
Are
did
we
have
ready?
one new request today, that you got the new one, the 350th anniversary committee came
Yeah.
in. Do
They-
remember that your warrant doesn't technically close until the 22nd. So you can go through this tonight, but until the 22nd, you can't be sure there wouldn't be another request. Just letting you know that.
Keep your fingers
Also,
crossed, everybody. We don't want, okay.
Also, I think you only, from the Community Preservation Committee, I think you only had 3 warrant articles.
I just put them in as placeholders. I'll put in
It's
as
gonna
many as
be,
you need.
well, I mean, it's gonna be 4, so I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
that's fine. I just put them in as placeholders. This warrant isn't anywhere near complete. It's just complete. I was just trying to hold place. I knew that, I just took the 2 from last year and emptied them out, figuring you'll give me whatever you guys have.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is go through this warrant. And Andrea, it'll be 2021.
Yeah, I haven't, there's a few places hanging around here and there, and I've corrected some of the things that I've already found in the warrant too, that you're probably gonna mention, but I've already figured out, because some of the numbers were wrong and some of the articles mentioned
Yeah.
themselves, and
Oh,
I
the
already
numbering,
corrected
'cause you-
those.
You added,
Yeah, the
that-
articles moved around a little.
yeah, you added that 350th or whatever, and that changed
Yeah.
the numbering. Okay, I have a suggestion that I haven't mentioned to, I mean, this is the first the finance committee's heard of it. Senior Center stove, I'd like to call it Town Hall Kitchen Stove.
It's up to
And
you.
I'll tell you why. Maybe some of you have not seen it, that there's any other parties using that kitchen. It used to be rented out. There used to be, I'm not talking that long ago either. And up until this past year, I think the Unitarian Church did a Thanksgiving dinner for anybody that wanted to come there. And they had to use our kitchen to cook some of the turkeys. I just, there's no problem with the people that are there now and are using it. But you may someday get somebody say, this is a senior center stove. What do you think?
I agree.
I agree also.
I would
So do I.
agree. I know that, didn't the Kiwanis used to use that all,
Yes,
once a month also, for instance?
yes. And they had somebody that cooked a meal there for them. Yeah, they used, that's true. Anybody have a problem with that? Speak up, please.
It should always be that.
Okay,
Got it.
okay. Now, that committee, I'm not objecting, but they do know they've already got 5,000 from this current year.
I suspect they're probably going to need a way more than that, and I think that they decided to split it up by asking you each year. I suspect you can see this request probably for multiple years. To put on I don't know, they haven't really spent anything yet, but I think as they're looking at a publication
Okay.
and a parade and deposits and tents, I think the idea was to ask for a little bit each year rather than to come in the year before and say, we need 30,000 or 20,000, or I don't know what their number will be.
Sorry. Wow. Okay. Okay, and I know you'll straighten this out where it says finance committee recommends, well, I don't think there are any that we are not.
I
recommending.
just leave it and I change it when I go in there. Just,
Yeah, okay.
once you make your votes, then I will
Yeah,
edit whatever you want.
all right, now I've got to go through to see where I marked it up. Seven was the EMS one. Sewer.
Article 6 in the contingency article, not 7.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
I
you
already
saw
made
me.
that correction. I caught some of these my second time through, so
Yeah, we don't need the contingency anymore.
I don't think you do. I think I can eliminate that article. I think if you need a 2.5, you're gonna have to take a full 2.5 vote.
Yeah, that's been on since the early 90s and it was recommended by K&P and we've carried it every year since, but
I don't know anybody else that does really. I can probably just pull it out. and move
I'm
everything.
willing to let it go. Anybody, Jack, you'll have any thoughts on that one? You've worked with it.
If we get up near the levy limit, something unusual has happened, so.
Yeah, okay.
Not
Yeah,
of
you
any-
kind of got a little bit of a big bunch there.
Yeah,
Right.
Go ahead and make it.
okay, now, this is a question, Andrea. The revolving funds, and I know this is a law that we have to do this, but you're adding a tax, isn't the tax title a new revolving fund?
Yes, and there should be an article in there, may not have
Yes,
made it
there
in
is.
there, to
But-
add that as a fund. So for 1 year, you have to vote it in. And then, yes, the next year. So yes, it's not in the chart yet, but it will be. I just haven't added it yet.
Okay, so that's what I thought, maybe it needs to go in.
Yeah, it just hasn't been added.
Okay,
And I'll probably move the article to vote it on top of the other one. I'll probably reverse the order.
yes, that might, sure, be
Yeah.
better.
I've
That's
already made a note to do that.
Article 10, yeah.
So 9 and 10 will be reversed. Actually, they're going to become 8 and 9 because we just cut out Article 4, but I'll worry about the numbering. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Anybody jump in with anything that they find? I'm trying to go, I didn't make a list of what I'd marked, but here's, okay, I think this is the one, the 16 that we discussed earlier. Floor mats. That's what you talked about, Andrea, needing floor coverings after
Yes.
the floors are redone. And so
Yeah,
you're
we
calling
can-
it
Right, I was calling them mats for the most part. I mean, they're coverings, if we want to call them.
Okay, you want to tell us about, this was added, the elementary school capital items.
Right, and I think I sent you at some point, maybe, I don't remember now, it's been kind of a whirlwind. I've tried to now start in that same pattern that you're looking at, a capital plan sheet for the elementary school, so I can try to get them on board with you guys seeing things that are coming up. So I don't know, I thought I sent that, maybe I haven't, I sometimes get lost. You got the town hall one. I've
Yeah,
started
I
a
didn't-
Northfield
I didn't-
Elementary School one.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, I've been playing with it because we're still meeting as the capital committee. In the past, you used to always vote 2 things, a capital number and then carpeting. And apparently, once you got to those huge, big projects, when you were voting 100, 150,000 for the electrical, that kind of fell off the table. And what that was used for was smaller capital projects that they do during the course of the year.
You did carpeting for 1 or 2 rooms every year. I
Right, and
think.
that's still on here. So
Yeah.
that would be on here. They've got a couple more to do, and I was up there and we walked through. There's a couple places where the tile is literally coming off the floor. So we changed it to flooring because they have to fix this
Yeah, oh,
little
yeah.
square area in front of a classroom where the tile's all broken up. So we, instead of just doing carpeting, we did flooring because they have to do
Sure.
that square piece.
That's good.
But apparently you guys used to do, I mean, it might have been $25,000 a year towards just capital maintenance, where they used to repair things like doors and windows, broken things that over time, or things that happened during the year, not operating expenses,
Right.
not stuff that's supposed to be covered, not electrical bills, not operating expenses, all that's covered by the district.
District.
But the building would have capital needs, you know, on top of that. I mean, and Bernardston used to gets down into the nitty gritty. It needs a new refrigerator, they vote a new refrigerator, but like, you know, you guys used to give just a sort of a chunk of capital money.
Yeah.
So this year they asked for a new computer switch. Apparently
Yeah,
they
what
they
does that mean?
borrowed one from somebody. It's a piece of computer hardware that manages their network, and they have a piece that's borrowed from someone else. So they need their own. It's
Is that really our responsibility?
I mean, it's not an operating expense. It's something you put in for 6 or 8 or 10 years. So I mean, I am still waiting to see the district sign the new district agreement, which has at least some attempt at defining the word capital, because
Yes. I've been trying to get it, Andrea.
yeah, I hear you. So are things, capital expenses are they over a certain amount of money? Do they last a certain amount of years? So I don't remember what's in that agreement now, but it was like over 10 years or over $10,000. I honestly can't remember what the definition of capital was in that
One town
agreement.
wants
They
everything over a certain dollar amount.
Right.
And they're
They-
trying to get it in now, I
Yeah.
think.
We tried to, the committee that looked at that tried to move it
You were on
up
it.
from $5,000 to 10,000, since
Right.
it hasn't changed in a long time.
I mean, everything hits 5,000 now.
And they turned that down.
Yeah, well, they want to keep it low. The school wants it low because that puts you on the hook for more stuff.
Right. So I mean,
In all
they-
honesty, I mean,
right
replace a
now
couple
it's-
doors and it's $5,000.
Right now, it's $5,000.
Right. You want to push that up to 10.
We wanted to, but
Yeah.
the school committee voted it down.
Yes. Well, that's all well and good till it comes to town meeting floor, and then you guys have to approve it. So that debate is not just theirs alone. But at any rate, it's a debate you can have in the future. So, you know, I've always taken the avenue that a capital cost should at least be a $10,000 expense, or at least a good 5 to 10 year item. So, you know, that puts most large systems of printers or copiers out of it if you're replacing them every 5 years and they're only a few $1,000s, because that's kind of an operating versus, you know, something that might cost you
Yeah.
6 or 8 or 10, or might last 20 years. So
Okay.
this
And you told
network
us-
switch is something that they need. So you guys had in your budget, in your operating budget, you had a line item for elementary school maintenance. And it's now in the omnibus. It was there before, and it was always there, and it was zeroed out the last year or two because you were doing those big projects. That's where I put 12,000. And the reason I put 12 instead of 25 is because they're asking for an $18,000 switch. Now, you guys can determine these numbers or whether you approve. So rather than put 25 back in there and then put 28 in here for the elementary school, I said, well, let's start small. Let's put 10 or 12 back in that, because that's around the capital concept. 10 or $12,000 is capital. And then ask for the switch. They've been doing the flooring now for every year, and they continued
Yeah.
that through
Yeah.
the project. They were doing the library last time, and now they're doing, you know, they have a couple pieces left to do.
Now, we talked about this the other day. There is no building utilization committee anymore, so it's people,
No.
it's the principal and
Their
district.
their facilities coordinator and myself.
Okay,
That's who we've been able to scare up. You know,
Yeah.
obviously, if someone from finance wanted to be on it, more than happy to have you. You know, but I was trying, so I said to them, they have all these lists of needs for this, the few years. I said, we need to put these on a plan.
yeah,
And what's your most pressing plan? So I'm going to email you. I thought I had, but let me email you. And this is still in draft. I'm just trying to get them to put that on there. Start with 2021 with the electrical upgrade, with the flooring. And then I started to fill in their list of requests and where could we put them? They've got some roofing and windows. We're putting in SBA for that. We would go for a large project for that instead of trying to piecemeal that through the town. That's something the SBA would potentially cover, which they wouldn't do the electrical.
okay.
So,
School building assistance. would definitely-
right, and that would be a school building assistance loan, and then usually you can get 65 or 63 to 70% through them, and then the town would be on the hook
And
for
we
the
have a
other.
grant for some windows and stuff.
Well, we have to put in for that, and that's, I said to Kevin Seaman, I said, that's on you. I said, the town has to technically be the entity that borrows it. I will work with you, but it's the SBA. I do not have time. If you figure out the requirements, I will work with you on it and bring it to the select board and the finance committee, and you can discuss the whole thing. I said, but I don't have time to research it right now. I'm just doing too many projects, too many capital
Okay.
projects. So
Are
he's
we okay?
supposedly on that.
Yeah, are we okay then with this article? And then
That's up
she's
to you.
gonna do a plan
I will send you the plan.
for the future.
And it
Anybody-
contains a bunch of, I asked them for all the stuff, front entrance canopy, that might be the SBA. They have no lighting in their front or back parking lot. I said, okay, I said, put everything on the list.
Yeah,
Let's
Okay,
then
see.
we can see where it
Okay.
goes.
are we
So-
okay with this article?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
Yes,
and you have 12,000 in the omnibus too, just so you know, don't lose
Yes.
track of that.
Yeah,
I just wanted you to be aware of
in
all
other
the,
words, your plan is that we'll get this back, this 12,000 back into the omnibus every year and then see what else there is needed.
right. I didn't jump up to 25 because if we're
No.
gonna start putting little things in like the carpeting, let's start with 10 or 12. And then see where that goes.
Okay.
But I will send you the 10-year capital plan that I just worked on putting
Okay.
together with them.
Got the stove.
And it's still rough because we're just still kind of working with it, but it'll give you some sense. I just like to plan.
And the
better.
audit is something we're moved into now for an annual audit. That's in here.
Right.
Lois, I have one question, if you don't mind me asking, on my paperwork that Article 11. Maybe it could be my misinterpretation or that, but I thought that when the fire chief was before us, when he asked for capital items, he was going to delay the rescue truck till fiscal year 2023, and we would go forward with the radios. I thought that was what he had told us at our meeting, that he was delaying that 1 year.
I looked back and I've got it down for fiscal 22, which would be this year.
But I could ask him, but I have it on, it's on the chart for 22, but if he told you that verbally, I can check.
No,
with him.
I thought that's what he said at
Okay.
our meeting before us in his budget. Again, that he was delaying it 1 year to fiscal 23, but he would be moving forward with the radio.
Okay.
purchase.
I'll
I
check
just
with
wanted
him.
confirmation on that, that's
I
all.
will absolutely check with him.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
I didn't get that because I thought the old truck was worn out, because that was a request that came in after the other capital ones about the radios and stuff, so.
Yeah, his
That's what
radio
I
one
thought
was
was
late,
needed.
yeah. But he
Okay.
may have, yeah, I'll check with him. I'll get back.
Yeah,
to
I
you.
just wanted confirmation, that's all. No
Yep.
problem.
Okay, any others here? And then there's OPEB, and we'll see when we get how much money we've got to allocate here, how much we could put toward that, and then,
I do have our OPEB balance in case you want to know.
yeah, how much?
We have $368,236.27 because you get interest in the state account, which is, trust me, it's a goodly portion. A lot more than a lot of times.
68,000.
68,236.27.
That's what we've already put in.
That's what you've been allocating and earning interest on, correct?
Okay. And it is now in the state fund, I think.
Yes.
Now.
Yes, it has been.
Okay.
And your stabilization is 1,527,630. $630.
1,527,630.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And that's, okay, now that's the next thing. You spoke about wanting a capital stabilization fund. We really haven't used our stabilization fund for anything other, well, we haven't really used it. It's finally so good to have a fund built up. But I don't see us using it for anything other than capital anyway. Do we really want the two funds, or do we want to change the name of the one we have?
Well, you should always have a general stabilization fund. And the purpose and logic of a general stabilization fund is for emergency purposes that have nothing to do with capital. If the bottom fell out of the state and they cut your funding in a 9C cut one year, right in the middle of the fiscal year, and you've got a general stabilization fund, something happens and a building blows up and you got $100,000 deductible. I mean, you always should have a general stabilization fund. And you're going to see it, Lois, because I'm going to shortly be sending you financial policy since you're a member of that. We haven't forgotten that committee's moving. And I'm not sure if it's in that, I don't think it's in the batch I'm sending you, but there's generally a recommendation of keeping a certain percentage of your budget in a general stabilization, and you can pick a policy. It can be 3%, 5%. They don't like to see more than a certain amount because that means you're hoarding money, and it can hurt your state aid. But usually as a financial policy, and it will come to you guys as it will come to the select board, you'll pick a number and say, we should have in our general stabilization, that's our rainy day fund.
Yeah.
We should always keep 3%, 4% of our budget. That's for emergency general budget relief. Capital stabilization is a completely different beast, and that's to save towards capital work and projects. And therefore, when you vote out of it, you're not touching your general stabilization fund.
Okay.
And that's the logic. Some people have defined capital stabilization projects. In Buckland, I had 9. You don't have to do that. You can put them all in one. I had a highway one, a police one. I had them all broken down. I had a transfer station one. So they chose to fund those at a certain level each year and got to the point where they were rolling police cars off the fund. They put in 10,000 a year. You get to year 4, buy a police car. 10,000 a year, get to year 4 or 5, buy a police car. So that was a certain methodology that they went by. You had to put like $100,000 a year into the highway one, so that when you went to buy a truck, boom, you got a truck. But so they did it by department. But you might want to consider one for capital expenditures that you could then choose. If it's a tough year, but he really needs that highway truck, you can take it out of there. Or you're saving towards the building, or an emergency capital purchase comes up because something's something falls on a vehicle and insurance only covers part of it and you got to buy it. So there's a purpose to usually splitting those two. And I would recommend that you have 2 and that you keep one per your policy, financial policy, as your general backfill. This is an emergency for operating the town. If the financing recession hits, they pull 100,000 out of our, budget money from the state. We need to have those reserves. The other one is, a capital one, and then we can do a capital plan, or we can use these capital plans and put them together, and we can do the capital stabilization account showing highway, police, and they can all factor into one general stabilization account, and then you can start to chart what vehicles you're buying when.
Jack?
What's that?
Did you want to speak on that? I thought you would.
I was yawning.
Oh.
The last time we did this, we did it for the one of the fire trucks. And what happened is the chief came and said, hey, we're going to need a new fire truck in 3 years. So we'll start putting money aside for it. And that's the last time I believe we had any kind of fund like that.
Yeah, you're right. It's true. You don't have a problem with setting up 2 a second account?
I would call them different, general stabilization, capital stabilization.
Yeah. Anybody else comment? Dan, did you?
No, I just gonna, if you're gonna do that, then I would split what we do in our general stabilization fund and what we're gonna put in the capital stabilization fund.
That's a
we-
discussion you have to have. You may want to
Yeah.
move money from one into the other. You may say, take $1 million out of general and put it in capital, leave 500,000 or something like that.
That's when we allocate the money. We can talk about that.
Right.
For this.
So I can add an article to creating a capital stabilization fund.
Okay.
And
with
then you
every-
can determine how to fund it.
It's just another way to save money as far as doing that.
Yeah.
And you still have to go to town meeting in order to use
Correct.
it. So
No, it doesn't change
Really,
any way that you,
Defining it and.
Yes.
By the
would
way,
probably be
now,
used more than the regular stabilization fund.
no, you'd still majority to put it in, 2/3 to take it out.
No, I'm just saying that it would be used probably, like you said, for equipment that we would normally not raise and appropriate for.
okay.
Yes, it's for capital projects or capital equipment.
How, now the 623,000, whatever, for free cash, that included, did that include, I think it did, the money from the cell tower?
No,
It did not.
no, the money from the cell tower is sitting in its own bank account, its own special fund that you cannot touch except for special purposes. So you have 433,000, something like that. The interest on it, unfortunately, well, the interest on it goes into the general fund. So that amount is set. So that 400, I think I have all the revenue. So let me find the cell tower revenue.
Oh, I thought it was probably part of the
No.
600.
No, it is not. That amount of money for the cell tower is an additional, I have it somewhere. $472,221.80 sits in a cell tower revenue fund,
472,
221.80.
yeah?
That sits in a fund. It is governed by Chapter 44, Section 63, because it was the sale of realty. So it has limitations on how you can spend it. Used to be you had to spend it on property and everybody said it's too restrictive, people couldn't spend it. Basically, the rule is you can only spend it on things that you would borrow to buy. So like major capital purchases. For
So,
example, a highway, an EMS, and police and fire facility could
Mhm.
easily, but you can't move it out. We can count it towards your capital costs, but we can't move it out of that fund.
no, I've been thinking of it right along for the public safety complex when we
Yes.
get to that point.
It's
Okay,
an
so
ideal
we-
purpose for it, but it's on
Okay.
top of your general, it would be on top of your other funds.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. And then we've got the CPA funds.
Right, and I'll add those when they come in.
Yeah, okay. And okay, they want to change the Conservation Commission number down.
Yeah, I have to remind them that we talked about this. The original the original vote at a town meeting was to have a committee of 5 to 7.
I
Well, when you
looked
make,
that up, yeah.
when you have a committee of 7, your quorum
It's
is
for-
4. They have 4 members. They've never had 7. I mean, not in any
No.
recent time. They were as low as 3. So there was a question about whether or not they were actually at quorum, but they only had 3 members. So the state said, you're good. So taking that committee down to 5 is very reasonable. It's not an unusual thing for a Concom to have 5. That would give you back to a quorum of 3, which means they could conduct business if 1 member can't be present. We'd like
This
to
look-
fill it. We'll continue to try and fill that 5th seat, but
Okay, it looks like, yeah, it said in the article back in 72 from 3
yes.
to 7. I think they adopted legislation that would go with that. Okay. If I'm skipping any that anybody wants to talk about, say so. Here, can you tell us publicly here where this solar facility is. Is it the,
I don't know. The solar facility, this is the one this is just a sample article I pulled from the one, this is a placeholder. This is the big solar one, the L'Etoile property.
okay,
It would have to be it would have to go to town meeting for, to allow a pilot to be negotiated when that when that
I
moves
see,
forward.
okay,
So you have to give them the authority to do it. You don't want to miss that opportunity. If it doesn't happen, it
Sure.
doesn't happen. But if it happens, you need to have that authority to negotiate a pilot. It's
okay.
actually the
Great,
assessors
so-
that negotiate the pilot, but
Andrea, so 28, 29, 30,
Those are-
31 are new bylaws?
those are local option taxes that you have to adopt.
Would
If
they be
you-
bylaws?
No,
Okay,
I don't think they're bylaws. They're
No,
your
you-
bylaws. I think they're just adopted. I'll look and see whether they go in your general bylaws. If they're
Yeah,
not, they're not zoning.
they'd be, okay, general bylaws, okay.
If that, but I'm not sure. I think you just adopt them and you alert DOR.
That was
I don't
just my
think,
own for me.
yeah, but I don't think they're bylaws, but I'll double check. I think they're just adopted.
Okay, is somebody pushing to have this meals tax?
Did you want to talk about 28 before you get to that one? That's the Shell Bridge one.
Okay,
27, okay.
28.
yeah,
Is that right?
Well, this is the article that the language that has to be voted so that the selectmen can negotiate rights of way.
okay.
Okay, I have
I-
27 on my thing, that's all.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, that was,
It's Article 27. This may be the newer one. I may have added the other article we
I've got
discussed. earlier.
28, yeah.
Yeah. It's
But then
just-
you'll be moving them up one more because.
yeah, I'm gonna be moving them around because, yeah,
Okay,
Okay, all right, so that's the legal language you need for that then.
I mean, I don't know, there's this weird symbol in the middle of it, but it was given to me by, yes.
Okay,
But
All
yes, I
right.
just wanted you to know it was there, and that's the language in order for them to actually negotiate and then ultimately sign rights of way, because it's a
Okay.
real estate transaction.
okay.
So it needs 2/3 vote.
All right, now the meals tax. Local option.
Right, these are local option meals and beverage taxes, marijuana tax, and then
room,
Is,
room
Is some-
excise tax.
yeah, is somebody looking to this?
No, I'm advocating you do it because you're losing a lot of revenue.
We don't have any restaurants.
Everything that's being sold as a prepackaged item at those stores would get 0.75. All those sandwiches that they're selling,
Okay,
all the brownies, all the everything they sell that isn't a grocery item
I
is
see.
actually a meals and beverage item. But also just thinking forward, I don't know what they're going to be having, whether they're going to be selling items at the Moody Center. If
Right,
they put in a snack bar at the college, all of them will be subject to this.
okay.
So I don't know that that's going to happen, but at 0.75, you'd be surprised, I do have, you guys are one of the few communities around you that actually doesn't have these taxes.
Well, back when it first came up, it was an option. We opted it not to. I mean, we didn't take a vote. I think it just, we didn't put it on.
Ashfield had, let's see, Bernardston, Buckland, Charlemont, Deerfield, Gill, Greenfield, Leverett, Montague, Sunderland, Whately, they all have it. They've all got the local option. Most of them have all three.
Anybody have any problem with that being on the warrant? I mean, it's not something we,
It's less than a penny. So if somebody buys something, I don't even know how they compute it now. If you buy something for $1, do they charge you $1.06? Because you can't charge $1.55,
yeah,
5.25 cents, right? So what do you pay? So the point is, this is not on the business. It's a pass-through tax directly to the consumer. So instead of paying $1.05 for your coffee, you'd pay $1.06. It's a penny, less than a penny.
okay,
DOR, when they report their sales tax to DOR collects it and it comes quarterly in our cherry sheet. So there is no additional work for the town. And it's all self-reported by anybody. If they're already reporting meals and beverage tax,
Yeah.
which they are,
yeah, Yeah,
This just adds to that. So they're already, this is no additional burden to anybody to report anything they aren't already reporting. Just changes the rate for the meals and beverage.
all
So
right.
every cup of coffee, everything that's not a grocery item.
Okay, the next one has to do with,
Marijuana excise tax.
no, the,
Oh. And I-
short-term rental.
Oh, the short-term rental, yes.
And I have a question on that. I mean, not that we're taking a position, but I don't understand it. It says
Actually,
the law
32,
as
yeah.
amended for short-term rental under 90 days annually and an occupancy excise on short-term rentals in excess of 90 days. They still call them short-term?
It's more in the definition, if you read it. But,
I didn't look up the law, no.
well, the MGL 64G Section 3A is in your notes. I'm not proposing you necessarily put all of that
Oh, I
on
see what
warrant.
you're saying.
I
yeah.
gave you the section to review this. I'm not necessarily proposing that you put all those notes in. I wanted you to have a chance to read it.
I didn't read it.
Yeah. That's gonna explain to you how this works.
Okay. Okay,
It
Now-
has, the under 90 days has to do with the renter, the over 90 days has to do with the person renting it.
oh,
So
I
if I
see.
rent it for a few days once a year, I don't get hit with the tax. But if I rent it more than 90 days in the course of a year, in other words, it becomes a business,
Okay,
then I get taxed. So they're for two different, does that make sense to you?
yeah, yeah.
But I'm
Okay.
renting for under 90 days. So if I'm renting for, 20 days, I'm a visitor. If I'm renting for over 90 days, I'm a tenant.
Okay,
So that's how
my
they've split that.
recollection, and Jack, you can tell me on this. I recall that we decided back when it was the first an option, I think we decided we didn't want to penalize the local person that was having a B and B.
And I understand that, but it is again a pass-through tax. And
Yeah, we've
but
got two B and Bs now, and you've also, again, got the Moody Center.
you're looking at several dozen rooms coming online. So it's
Andrea,
just
quick
time to
question.
talk about it.
Does this apply to Airbnbs also?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, that answers my question. And then I guess we're down to the,
the marijuana tax, which is number 31.
and that's.
You guys passed a marijuana bylaw, but you never accepted the excise tax. There's no marijuana facility I'm aware coming in. This is just, you better have it on the books
Just
in
in
case they
case.
ever do.
Yeah,
Right.
good to have it on ahead of time rather than
Right,
after.
and you can discuss that excise tax, that 6.5% is, there's, some of these are at 6%, some have chosen 5. You don't have to do the maximum, that's on you too, to talk about.
Yeah,
But I put the Mass General Law in there. The select board are talking, they're getting this tomorrow night for review, so you don't have to make any decisions tonight. I
yeah,
just think that with, I'm not trying to penalize anybody, but I think that you guys, if you truly, in fact, are talking some growth here, the town should be partaking in that growth.
yeah, we need, yeah, because you can't tack some of these things on after the fact.
And you have
So-
non-taxable entities. The college is a non-taxable entity. But if they're going to be bringing people in to stay at the hotels, if they're going to be eating in, cafeterias or cafes inside that pay sales tax, if they're going to be eating at local restaurants, those visitors should be
Yeah,
paying the town of Northfield for, those services that the town renders to those people.
okay,
So anyway, those are the 3 local option taxes. You can do none, 1, 2, all of them, but I think it's time. I wanted to bring them to you before, but I thought last year was not the year to have this discussion. So anyway,
Okay.
it really is. I know people get all excited. It's going to penalize local businesses, but that has not been the experience of most people. That's not what they've seen happen. Businesses don't flee. And by the way, Bernardston, Gill, Montague, all your neighbors have it. So
yeah,
where are they fleeing to?
okay. Do you, we could vote tonight on the articles, but there's some work to be done to.
I think I should send you a whole nother set so that you guys see
Yeah,
what you
And-
think.
what, yes, that would be good, I think. And the other thing is, I'd like to know how the rest of you feel. My thought was to use free cash for our capital items. The trucks, things like that. Now, we've got, oh, by the way, the articles here for radios. Police is all set on his, but we've got articles for the fire and EMS radios. Now, the EMS, are we talking about the town picking that tab up, or is it coming out of their?
I think they asked you for 10,000 in the capital request.
Yeah.
Guys.
So think about that. And
'Cause all the departments have to do it.
yeah, the state is providing some, but not enough for everything. So how do you feel about using free cash toward the capital items? What I'm looking for is to have Andrea draw up some sort of a draft of where the money, she's put some figures in, but as to where we'd apply some of this money and then see where we stand. How do you feel about using the free cash toward the
I mean,
capital
it's
items?
gonna take all your free cash. I mean, you got trucks at 400 and something, so it'll pretty much probably clean your free cash out. The question you have to understand is that you're gonna have $200,000 increase on your school budget, so.
That's the
Yeah,
next
I
thing.
think it'd be good to keep some free cash in the event of special town meetings needed later in the year for something.
I'll put it all in and then you guys can play with it, move it
Okay,
around. That way
Okay.
you can see what money, what pieces you might want to move whole.
And you're right, Andrea. My guess, and I didn't look at the figures she sent today,
It's the same operating figure that I had before.
which
it
is
seemed to-
about $200,000 increase for us.
Yes.
So
Yes, it
that's
is.
gonna come from somewhere. Okay, why don't we leave it tonight that Andrea will pull together, she's got more to do here.
I'll
And
put
put-
together this, yeah, and
And-
get that back out to you.
Yeah, and
Are
then.
you meeting next week then?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay, just making sure.
yeah, and then we can finalize this. Now, should we talk about inviting the select board? Can we say we'd need an hour, or should we just let it go till another meeting for them, with them? What do you think? What
Well-
I was thinking, and I'm not sure that we could do that, is we meet at 6 and invite them in for 7. Or do you think we could do it in an hour, Andrea? Depends how much we talk, right?
Mhm.
Depends on what yeah, it depends on if you're, I mean, I don't know how much you're talking about the regular budget or just the articles or.
Oh, I think we pretty much
Talk
talked
about it
through,
all, yeah.
through the omnibus.
You might want to put that off just a little bit because the articles don't even close till the 22nd. So
Okay.
have them in then,
Okay,
not this next week, but, or the week after, or maybe even the week after that. I don't know. I mean, you might want to not do it this coming
Yeah.
week. I think you may want to look at the numbers and play
we
a
might
bit more.
feel a little crowded on time. So, all right, why don't we say we're gonna meet next week and
Then
finish up
see.
what we can do? Yeah, and I don't know if we'll have the school budget by then even.
Yeah, so you may
My
have
guess-
to wait.
I've been expecting there'd be a posting for maybe like Thursday night this week for a school committee, but who knows? I didn't see it.
I haven't seen it.
No. Is everybody okay with that? To meet next week again?
Sure. Also,
Okay?
And I will get you paperwork out before the weekend.
Okay, good. And the agenda will be.
It'll be
just-
redated, everything's dated, so always look for the copy. I try to send them on Fridays because then you'll know it's that date you're looking for.
Yeah,
That gives you the weekend. So be looking for something dated Thursday or Friday, and then you'll know it's the new version.
sure. That'll give us a chance to look it over before Monday night's meeting.
Okay,
So, all right.
Okay.
Anybody have any problem with that, or you want to adjourn?
I think we should adjourn.
Well, we haven't finished the agenda.
No, but I think what ones did you want to talk about?
Well, reports on other meetings.
Yeah, you've had one?
Oh, yeah, we had one on Friday, actually.
Oh.
Okay,
We, as I mentioned earlier, we had 4 proposals before us. 3 of them we voted on and suggested that the town agree with us. The 4th that we did not. One of them was for the trails up, the old library trail up behind the library.
yes,
We funded that. Second one was a storage building for the senior center.
yes.
That will be matched. We gave them partial there and they were gonna match it with some gift funds, I guess they had.
I'd be careful on the location that you don't.
All right,
get-
it was with, after everything has been, after basically the drainage problem in the back parking lot was settled as far as the drainage.
Okay,
I think
Well,
I think they met with Tom to talk about it too.
yeah, so I mean, that was part of it is, once it have to be approved, citing have to be approved by the select board.
okay.
Um,
I don't know if the setback rule applies when this is just something that's set on top of the ground or not, but whatever. Okay,
Well, I wanted where they wanted to put it, which was right, if you are standing on the main street and looking towards the Boy Scout house, they
Yeah.
wanted to put it just to the right of that, but apparently that ran afoul of the setback rule and
okay, yeah,
whatever, so
that's what I was,
probably gonna be somewhere in back there's, I don't know where yet,
okay,
but that will be determined after consultation with the select board.
very good. Thank you.
And a third one, which was for a pavilion at the elementary school, was turned down because there were just too many ifs, I guess, in it. Like they need a licensed contractor to oversee it, and they don't have one. And they don't have a couple of bids that we wanted for things, which is hard to do if you don't have a licensed contractor
Yeah,
telling you what you need. There were several things that we wanted. We liked the idea, but we wanted some further clarification on a lot of these, on several of these things. And the 4th one, that's the tricky one. When they did the repairs on the steeple,
yeah,
the original proposal the church had was for the painting of the steeple, which we did fund, and that was done. Insurance took care of a large portion, well over $100,000 of the interior structural repair. But in doing that structural repair inside, they found that the housing for the clock, the timbers, et cetera, that house the clock mechanism, were rotten,
yeah,
and they had to replace all of that stuff around the clock. Not technically part of the clock, but they had to replace it.
yeah,
Now, I thought, well, insurance did not cover that because that was, I guess, they covered the wind damage, et cetera, but not that part.
yeah,
And the contractor, when he came across it, apparently mentioned it to the church, but said, well, we got to do this, and it turns out that there was an extra $29,000, no, more than $30,000
Ooh,
associated with the repairing the housing around the town clock.
yeah,
My feeling was that they should have, I guess the question would have been, when did they know and what did they know and when did they know it? And but anyway, the contractor went ahead and did it and presented them with the bill in December, I guess, which was $32,000 something dollars. And they came to the Community Preservation Committee to cover a portion of that.
mhm,
About 29,000, I think they asked for. The Community Preservation Act, the stuff was already done. Community Preservation Act says anything on a town asset was, couldn't be paid for after the project had started.
yeah,
And actually, the project we did was for the steeple, not for anything around the clock.
yeah,
But I felt that I did not, I felt sorry for the church, but I thought they should have had a closer eye on that and should have, I think the contractor and the insurance should have taken care of it. However, I was the only one who was of that opinion.
oh,
And the committee did vote to fund not the total amount, but $25,000
yeah,
for the stuff around the clock.
okay,
And so that will be one of our articles.
okay,
But it didn't, the clock is currently not working. And
Go ahead.
and the question is, who gets the clock working? It is the town clock. It shouldn't be this church that does it,
no,
but it's responsible for it. So there's still an outstanding thing about cost of repair, maintenance, cleaning of the town clock. Could be that it's just something that just needs to be cleaning, but it was making a funny sound when they started it after they finished the repairs. So they shut it down, which made sense.
yeah,
But we still have this thing that's up in the air. Who's going to pay for the repair? My reading of the Community Preservation Act is that we can't. And somebody's got to pay for it. And I'm wondering how we can, if there might be some way of getting a warrant article on there to fund that. People are they like the idea of the town clock, but it's sitting up there, not working right now, and there's no immediate plans for repairing it.
well, my opinion is that it is the town clock, and I don't think we should expect the church people to take care of the repairs on it. I mean, it's almost like a token payment, this payment we give them for the electricity.
Yeah, it is. That's all it is.
Yeah,
So
So-
how do we go about doing that?
well,
Getting a warrant? And who
I,
does it?
wouldn't you
the
first need
selectmen
an
do it?
estimate?
Well,
And where do you get it? And then we need, time is running out here for getting articles on. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but my thought would be you find somebody that does repair work on clocks of that type and then get an estimate. I don't know how, whether Andrea's gone or what, how many estimates you need, but then put article on the town warrant that we should pay for the repairs. What do the rest of you think?
I personally agree there should be estimates so we can inform the taxpayers of the cost of a potential repair, so they know exactly what they're voting for if it comes before town meeting. So I think we should move forward on getting those estimates. And I don't know if we get it on the warrant articles, but I think that's the first step.
I don't think it's up to us to be out getting estimates, though.
No, I think that's some.
Maybe Andrea or.
Andrea, the town administrator, should look into. Forgive me, that's not our area. And I think that's something that she and the select board could discuss and move forward from their point of view.
Well, and also something ongoing, maintenance of that, of the clock.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe it
something
should
like that.
cleaned periodically or something like
Exactly,
that.
cleaning and maintenance. That, I mean, we can't expect it to just keep on ticking away forever.
No,
Once you get an estimate to fix it, then the company that fixed it will probably give you an idea what it would cost to maintain it. So once you get those figures together, and it's not going to happen for this town meeting, I don't believe you don't have enough time to do it. You might be able to get it into a special town meeting coming up later on if we have one, but you're not going to get it in time. So you can ask Andrea probably to try to pursue that, but you're asking, once you find somebody that's capable of doing it, some company, then you ask what the maintenance cost would be and how often do you have to do things like that. So we could
See if
beat
there's
this all
any
night
way-
long as far as doing it, but I think what you want to do is approach Andrea tomorrow.
see if there's any way that it could be, and get an estimate so it could be voted on, but you're right, I don't know if there's time enough, but definitely I would feel it's a town's responsibility.
That's what I feel too, and as Dan said, I doubt if it's possible to do it in the time frame we have, which is by the 22nd. So,
About 8 weeks to the town meeting here
Yeah.
So you
now.
want to
well,
find
but
you
it's
wanna find
to
a
get the
company
warrant
that does
article
this.
in.
Yeah, if you find a company that does this as far as doing that, then you work out a program where they maintain it for you, and you'll have a budget each year for what you have to put aside. So that's the way, and again, you also have your electricity in it. So that's what you need to do if you want to maintain the clock.
Andrea, have you heard any of this?
She's not here, I don't think.
Yeah, even, sorry, I had to run to the ladies' room. I mean, I know that you've talked about before about maintenance money for the town clock and how we should kind of figure out how to structure that.
It needs repairs, and so we're suggesting that Tony talk to you about finding, I don't know where you get the repairs done, but whether you can get by, I don't know what you need for estimates, but you'd need the estimates. Probably
We have
can't
to
get
find
them.
somebody who does this work and have them go up and take a look and say, hey, give us the rundown, do a
Yes.
full eval. Tell us what
And
we're talking.
There used to be a man in Conway that worked on antique clocks, but I don't know if that means church steeple clocks,
Yeah, I don't
that's,
know.
so that's where it stands, and that's what we're suggesting. that
Yeah, we'd have to
the-
find somebody to give
Yes,
an
Well,
evaluation.
Somebody is not going to give an estimate for nothing. So how about who
They're
would-
specialized enough that they probably will get the work if they give you an estimate. You're not
Right,
gonna
right.
find competing bids at this
No, I
point.
know, usually you say maybe 2 or 3 bids or something like that, but
Yeah,
how
well, it
many
depends on how much you're talking. I mean, if all this
steeple
work,
clocks?
right, if all this work's gonna be under a certain threshold, you don't actually have to get competing quotes. I mean, if it's under 10,000 and this is a reputable person and the prices are reasonable, and you don't have to get 3 quotes for that because
so
you can use sound business judgment.
Tony, find out who it would be to talk to at the church, because somebody's got to let this person in to go in and check the clock, to give an estimate, and things
I
like
gotta
that.
find somebody. Do you have somebody in mind who would do this?
I have no idea. So
Does the church, anybody at the church have an idea?
well, quite a while ago, there was some repair done on the clock.
No, we gotta figure out who
Maybe a
that was.
decade ago, but I don't know who that was, or if anybody knows.
Yeah.
I know a couple of the people that are, who talked to us recently, they are relatively newcomers to the church, so they.
Yeah,
may-
send me an email, excuse me, send me an email or be in touch with me and remind me tomorrow or the next day, and let's see if I can throw something out there too, and see if I can get anybody who has an idea.
Okay,
All right,
problem.
Tony, you do that?
I can do that.
Hi,
Okay.
this is B. I just wanted to let you know I can, Andrea, if you can copy me on that email, maybe I
Okay.
can send it out to a few historical commissions.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Yeah,
They might know somebody.
yeah.
Okay,
I think one time years ago, there was they were looking for donations. There was some sort of a fix the clock fund or something like that. But I have no idea who. But you need, like you say, Tony, you need to find some of the church members that have been around a few more years. It might-
Right.
yeah, so just send me a reminder. I can send it out. B can send it out. We'll see if we can scare up some suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
All
I'll
right,
do
so
that.
we had a motion to adjourn, and it was seconded, I believe. Any reason we should not adjourn now? Thank you, Tony. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.